Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sisters. I am your man and resident Washington football fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. So, live, that is. So, a lot of things have happened since the last time we've had one of these live streams. As a matter of fact, Washington has hired another member of their front office. We've talked about that already. Chris Polian will be the new director of pro personnel. So he'll be looking at free agency, which we'll talk some more about tonight. I told you we were going to continue with the free agency theme. We did wide receivers last week and a smatter of tight ends. And this week, I really want to just kind of throw a whole blanket over the defense because I don't really expect us to be overly aggressive defensively in free agency. However, you never know. The salary cap did come down. We got the official numbers today. $180 million is what the salary cap will be set at. Down about $20 million from last year's $200 million salary cap figure. Up $5 million from what the projected salary cap was supposed to be at $175. So it's not as bad as it could have been. That said, Washington's still in a really good spot with their salary cap situation, but we do have money to spend on guys like Brandon Sheriff that I think they're going to actually take care of at some point. I think Brandon Sheriff will be back in a Washington uniform next season and for the foreseeable future. I think Ronald Darby is a guy that they would like to have back. Now, again, will he end up being outside of the range that they want to pay him? I think there's going to be a very robust market for Ronald Darby's services this offseason. So that's a guy we'll talk about tonight at some point as we'll get into the cornerback position. I told you already that I felt like Washington had some needs on the defensive side of the football, but I didn't think that they were really going to be aggressive in handling them because there aren't many options. Unlike wide receiver, that I do think we're going to have some options available and that they're going to spend money free agency-wise on a wide receiver. I don't know if I can say the same for the defensive side of the football. We need a middle linebacker more than anything else on this defense. I think that's the one thing. If you could give Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio truth serum and have them tell you where's the biggest weakness right now on their defense, they'd probably tell you it's at the linebacker position, specifically at middle linebacker. Could they use a weak side backer? Yeah. I mean, last year we saw the snap count for John, what's my man's name from Seattle and Chicago and Kevin Pierre Louis, or Lewis. I like to call him Louie. KPL, we saw his snap counts decrease as the season wore on. As we got late into the season, he sustained an injury. They just said to hell with Kevin Pierre Louis. His snap count was starting to dwindle before the injury at San Francisco. After the injury, he was non-existent. As a matter of fact, when they did go to their three linebacker base sets, they would just put in Michael Kendricks. So I think there is a need at weak side backer as well as middle linebacker. If you told me that they were going to come back next year with John Bostic at middle linebacker, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, they seem to have been really hell-bent on trying to convince everyone that Bostic wasn't as bad as everyone thought. We're not dummies. We can see, we have two eyes. We're able to identify where the problems are. And they even acknowledged that their linebackers needed to play better. And they did to an extent as the season wore on, but it wasn't good enough. If you want to take the next step defensively, they're going to have to take a hard, long look at linebacker. And maybe that means weak side linebacker as well. At the end of the day, there are some options on the team. You know, I really liked what we got out of Khaleke Hudson when he got an opportunity to play. I don't know if that's the answer. He's going to get bigger. You know, that's the thing. A guy comes in here, he's 227, he looks light, and trust me, Khaleke Hudson was very light last year as a rookie, and he wasn't a dominant force in the run game in terms of taking on blockers. But give him a year or two, he may put on 10, 12 pounds of muscle, be more physical, more stout at the point of attack, We know he's got speed. We know he can run. We saw the Seattle game where the guy was all over the field and made about 15 tackles or so. So we know he's capable. There may be an in-house option at weak side backer. I just know that we could use an upgrade there. I don't think KPL is going to be back. I think they're going to allow him to walk in free agency. And I think that there is a desperate need for an alpha male at middle linebacker. I don't think that guy's on the roster right now. And I think we are only set at one linebacker position, and that's strong side backer with Cole Holcomb. And so if I'm Washington, I'm looking at the free agency crop, and I'm not blown away. There's not much there to really choose from at the linebacker position, weak side or middle linebacker position-wise. So I don't really know if free agency is going to be the answer that the wide receiver position is going to be for Washington in free agency. I do know that cornerback is a glaring need for this football team if you don't get Ronald Darby back. Even with Darby back, I think they have to draft. I don't think they have to necessarily be over-aggressive in free agency if they get Darby back. If they don't, I think they have to go out and get a cornerback. I don't know if a young corner comes in here and is able to give you what you need at the cornerback position. As we know, unless you're getting one of those top flight, top 15, top 20 corners, generally speaking, you don't get a guy that balls right out of the gate. Now, you may get a third or fourth or fifth or sixth rounder that comes in here, and by the time we get to year 2 or 3, he's ready to go. But generally, right out of the gate, ballers in year 1 at the cornerback position are rare. It's a special breed. It's the Patrick Petersons. It's the Stephon Gilmores of the world. And I think Stephon Gilmore might have even had a slow start in Buffalo to his career initially. It's rare, though, that you get a guy that comes in and they're ready to go right out of the gate. Marshawn Lattimore comes to mind as another guy that was ready to go right out of the packaging year 1, day 1. Those are rare, though. Those are top half of the first round type of selections. We're not going to be in a position to do that. More likely than not, we'll see. I think a guy like Patrick Surtain could actually fall into our lap at 19. We know that there was an affinity for Alabama players. Now that Bruce Allen is no longer here and he can't rely on the crutch of, hey, I may not know what the hell I'm doing, but Nick Saban surely does. And if I just take enough Alabama players, we'll just be fine. I don't think we're going to be subscribing to that theory any longer. So even if a guy like Surtain is on the board, which I think he could actually be, I don't know if that's the direction Washington will ultimately decide to go in at 19. If they are selecting at 19, a lot of things could happen between now and then, speaking of the draft. And so who knows what Washington will do, if they'll even have their first round pick or if they'll ship that off somewhere to land themselves a quarterback moving forward. Right now, it feels like they're going to stand pat with what they have in terms of draft capital. Looks like they're going to have to maneuver free agency and then try to build through the draft. And I don't think any of us would have a problem with them doing that if, in fact, that is what took place the remainder of this offseason. But a lot of questions, not a lot of answers right now, but we feel really good about where we are as we sit here on February 18th. We feel so much better February 18th, 2021 than we did February 18th, 2020, even though Bruce was gone, Ron was here, and there was an excitement in the air, and we were still called the Redskins then. It still felt like, all right, it's a lot of work to do. At least we got rid of the bad man. He's no longer here. The big bag boogie Bruce Allen is no longer here. We still felt like, man, there's a ton of work to do. And we're talking about changing cultures and trying to figure some things out. Well, we got the culture thing kind of wrangled, okay? Feels like we kind of got that under wraps. Feels like we're heading in the right direction. We just came off of a division championship, even though it was 7-9. I know. I don't want to, build it up like it was a 10-6 division championship. It doesn't matter. It's a championship of the NFC East nonetheless. And so it feels like we're heading in the right direction. This defense took a massive step forward, but we still got a ways to go. And so free agency is going to be big, all right? And the draft is going to be even bigger than free agency. So it's going to be big to see what is done with this football team in the coming months, because it's going to shape and mold what this team looks like up in the upcoming 2021 season in a major, major way. So I want to talk about a lot of different positions tonight, mainly cornerback and linebacker, because I know free safety, and I put down a list, and just in case you want to hear the list again, I gave you this list last week. I'll run over it again this week. My biggest needs in order. This is the order in which I see them right now. Wide receiver number 2. And look, it could be wide receiver 1 for all I care. And they could go out and get a guy that's better than Terry. I don't give a shit. We need another guy, period. Wide receiver is the biggest need right now on the team. Middle linebacker to me is the second biggest need. Tight end to me is the third biggest need. Cornerback is the fourth biggest need. Only if you bring back Ronald Darby. If Darby is not brought back, cornerback then goes ahead of middle linebacker and becomes your second biggest need. Okay? That's how impactful Ronald Darby is to this roster. If he's brought back, then cornerback is your fourth biggest need. If he's not brought back, Ronald Darby is gone in free agency. Fabian Moreau gone in free agency. Then cornerback jumps all the way to position number 2 on this football team. That's how bad we could be off at the cornerback position. So it's something to keep in mind. Then I have free safety as the fifth biggest need. And then defensive end is my final need. And you could throw running back, and I talked about this last week. You could throw running back at the very back end of the list if you'd like. I could honestly see how running back could be an issue, especially if Bryce Love ultimately doesn't work out here. You could throw running back at the back end of the list, but for me, middle linebacker and cornerback are your two biggest needs. I don't see them spending any money at free agency or free safety, excuse me. And I told you that Rivera in Carolina, along with Marty Hurney, their philosophy at the safety position was, hey, we'll figure it out. We'll throw a Band-Aid on it. We'll be good. It was always, small investments on veteran players to come in and give them a Band-Aid solution at the safety position. It was never, let's spend a high pick at the safety position. It was never, let's go spend big money at the safety position. I told you, it was Mike Mitchell on a minimal deal. It was Trey Boston as a draft pick, but then again, back as a minimal investment free agent. It was Mike Adams at the back end of his career. It was Roman Harper on the back end of his career. These are the types of guys they were bringing in Carolina at the safety position. It was Eric Reed for a couple of years. Not a massive deal. Again, they put Band-Aid solutions on the safety position. They weren't looking to go out and get big name free agent acquisitions at safety. And we already have one on the roster in Landon Collins, and most of you don't even want him around. So I don't see them going and spending more money at safety, even though there are some interesting names at the safety position in free agency. I just don't see Washington investing in any of those guys. I think corner is a much bigger need that they will invest in, especially if Darby isn't back. And still, even if they want Darby back, they're going to have to invest in him. So that would make it the second straight offseason that they've spent money at the cornerback position. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. I got a couple of super chats. I'm going to knock these out real quick because I don't want them to go away. David Does, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. David Does, who writes, free agency going to be big. Teams have to cut for the salary cap. It was funny. I'm glad you brought that up, David Does. I was reading a tweet from a running back in the league. I think it was Chase Edmonds of the Arizona Cardinals. And Chase Edmonds of the Arizona Cardinals said, this free agency is going to be crazy. He said, I could see NBA super teams being formed for 1 year because a lot of guys are going to be cut because they're cap casualties. And a lot of dudes are going to be taking 1-year deals because they don't want to sign a contract under this salary cap, under the confines of this $180 million cap. And then next year, you're going to see the cap explode if things get back to normal, if fans are allowed back into stadiums and you're getting all of the money from concessions and ticket sales and parking and all of that revenue that's generated. The new TV deals are about to come up. They're going to get a big rush in terms of a boost from that. So like I said, There is so much money that is out there to be had. There's going to be a lot of money that's going to be added to the cap. So I don't think a lot of guys are going to be looking for 2 or 3 year deals under this cap situation. They're going to be looking for a 1 year deal. They're going to try and hit it big for this 1 year, and then next year they're going to come back and they're going to look for that long-term deal when there's a lot more money to be given out. So again, you could see a bunch of guys that are released. I was talking about, the Eagles situation, and they're in cap hell right now. And so Fletcher Cox could be a guy that could eventually be a cap casualty. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That was something that was thrown to me from an Eagles fan that said, hey, these are all the guys, and he listed a few names of guys that could be cap casualties, and Fletcher Cox's name, he's making a ton of money. He could be a cap casualty, and you're going to see that around the league. There are going to be some teams with players that they don't want to get rid of, but they don't have a choice because their cap situation isn't ideal, and this cap is a lot lower than it usually is, and so tough decisions are going to have to be made. And you could see Patrick Peterson, for instance, is a free agent this year. He could decide to take a 1 year deal. All right, and say, all right, I just want to play under this 1 year contract. And he could decide to say, you know what, who's got a chance to win a Super Bowl this year? I'll take a little bit less this year in order to play for a chip. And then next year, I'll look to get my final big contract, and that'll be it. And you could get a number of guys that decide to do that are free agents this year. And there are a lot of interesting names at various positions that could say, I'll take a 1 year deal. Let's all go here to this team, and you might have to take a little bit less and sign your little 1 year, $7 million, 1 year, 4.5. I mean, it's essentially what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did this year. They signed a bunch of guys to 1 year deals, and they're going to have to re-sign a bunch of players this offseason. But they pretty much said, we're going to push all our chips to the table, bunch of 1 year deals. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, remember, I talked about that with the Rams a couple of years ago. The Rams did that. A bunch of guys on 1 year contracts. They had Sue on a 1 year contract. They had Dante Fowler Jr. on a 1 year contract. And a bunch of guys on a 1 year deal trying to win a chip. And you could see some teams doing that this year where they're saying, hey, we don't want to commit to anybody. You're not looking to commit to a long-term deal. This works for us. Come in, take a 1 year deal. Let's see if we can't win a chip. And then we'll all part ways next year and you can get your money somewhere else. It's a really fascinating dynamic with the cap being the way that it is this year. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it is something that we must keep in the back of our minds, that this could be a unique situation with the cap being down this year, and knowing that it's going to explode next year, potentially, if things get back to normal with a new TV contract and, revenue from fans being back in the stands and parking and food and concession and things of that nature. We could easily see a situation where the cap goes from 180 to 215, 220, 230 next year. Some crazy, ridiculous number. All right, because we know if the fans come back, it's going to jump from 180 to 200 just like that, just off the strength of the fans and all the money that they generate at the gate and for parking and concession. It's just going to jump back to 200. Then the new TV money is going to push it up even more. So you can see a lot of 1 year deals potentially this year. It's a really fascinating dynamic, to say the least. Got another super chat. Want to go ahead and take that. This one is from Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Greatly appreciate you, as always, who writes, what up, Lou? Jayon Brown would fit nice in this defense. If we resign Darby and sign Jayon, does this unit become elite? I don't like throwing the E word around because you don't just become elite overnight. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 players away from this unit being elite. We need Chase Young to take the next step. We need Montez Sweat to take the next step. We need Daron Payne to up his game. We need Jonathan Allen. We need Matt Ioannidis to come back like gangbusters. Like, we need the secondary to settle in. Like, we weren't good in the back end at times last year. There were games where we were absolutely horrid on the back end. There were games where Kendall Fuller looked like trash. The Detroit Lions game, the Steelers game for about 3 quarters. There were games where this secondary struggled. I thought Darby and Fuller looked bad against Tampa Bay. The entire secondary, I thought, for the most part, was a shell of itself against the Buccaneers in the playoff game. So it's not just linebacker. It's not just, one position here or there. Everybody has to get better. And I'd like to think that year 2 in the same system with Jack Del Rio is going to make a massive difference. And I do think that that's going to help these guys potentially take the next step. However, it's not just going to happen by adding in Jayon Brown. That's not going to just take this defense from good to great. While he is a solid player, I don't know if he's the missing piece or not. He could definitely help. But this defense as a whole has to take the next step. If we're just rushing forward, we got to be able to hit home on 3rd and 7. We can't be having guys sitting back in the pocket and not getting pressure. And so the word elite signifies something in this league that, to me, it's hard to come by. And so I don't like to throw around the word elite frivolously. I don't like to throw that word around loosely because elite defenses can carry you a long way. Our defense was not elite last year. It was good. All right, but it wasn't great. And so I think that we are getting close to doing something special on defense. But again, everybody's going to have to take that step up, not just finding a new middle linebacker or getting Darby to come back. You're going to have to get guys to step up. When Landon Collins comes back, he's going to have to play better. Cameron Curl in year 2 is going to have to take that next step, whatever role he's playing, whether it's as a big nickel, that Buffalo position that we've heard so much about, or he's getting a lot of snaps at strong safety and they're rotating him and Landon Collins, or they're doing some different things, or they're putting a 3 safety package on the field. Whatever the case may be, we're going to need the corners to step up. Jimmy Moreland's going to have to step up in the slot if he is, in fact, the slot, if we don't go out and address that position in free agency. This defense has some holes. We're going to have to be better at multiple spots, not just at middle linebacker, but having a middle linebacker that can run, that is instinctual, that definitely would help. Is Jayon Brown that guy? I don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I think Jayon Brown is good. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's a game changer per se. Maybe he's a lot better behind this defensive front than the one he played with in Tennessee. But if they can get a guy that is instinctual, that is a hunter, I mean, he's an absolute dog at middle linebacker, it changed a lot with this defense. We saw the difference that it makes when you got a dog at middle linebacker. If you watch Tampa Bay in the playoffs, you know all too well the difference between their defense with Devin White and without him. All you need to know is that we put up 23 and probably could have scored 35 on them with no Devin White. And with Devin White, I don't know if we score 17 in that game. So a middle linebacker, a damn good one, and Devin White is a different breed. But those kind of guys change the game. I don't know if we're going to be able to stumble upon one of those guys or not. Jayon Brown is not that. I can assure you of that. But if Jayon Brown in free agency could turn into Demario Davis, remember Demario Davis was drafted by the New York Jets. All right. He ends up in New Orleans. They trade for him. The guy's been lights out, one of the better middle linebackers in all of football. If Jayon Brown turns into Demario Davis for us, if we were to sign him, then yeah, that's a game-changing move right there. Okay? And sometimes it's all about who you're playing behind. In New York, Demario Davis wasn't playing behind the most talented defensive front. He struggled a bit. He goes to New Orleans. He's playing behind some dogs and some horses. He turns into an absolute animal. If that's what Jayon Brown could be for us, then yeah, that's a definite game changer for sure. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I refuse to use the word elite. It's hard for me to take that leap of faith. Let's see. Got another super chat here from my man Rob Yu once again. Thank you for the super chat, Rob U, double up, thank you for doubling up, Rob U. Greatly appreciate you. My man Rob U writes, Lou, if you give one of these big free agent wide receivers $15 to $20 million per season, how do you approach Terry's deal when it's time to extend? I mean, that's the dilemma that you face, and I've already talked about this. I think that if you're Washington, if you're going to swing for the fences, then you're going to end up paying $15 to $20 million per year for one of these free agent wide receivers. If you're looking to go to that next tier down, and I told you, honestly, that's where we should be shopping, in that second tier, then you won't have to necessarily break the bank for Terry. Terry is going to define his next contract. He's going to define what the terms of his next deal looks like. This was a good year for Terry. Over 1,000 yards receiving. He was clearly the best receiver on his team. He was a go-to guy. Even when there weren't many other targets to get it to, he shined for a stretch there. Before the injury took place, the re-aggravation, I should say, because he was playing banged up for the vast majority of this season, but it wasn't until the Seattle game where he really got banged up and re-aggravated the ankle, and it got to a point where he had to miss the Carolina game. Up until that point of the season, Terry was a dog almost every week. You could put Terry down from anywhere from 5 to 9 catches for anywhere from 70 to 100 plus yards. But then once he got that ankle, he kind of slowed down a bit. If Terry takes, and I just talked about the defense and guys need to take the next step. Well, that applies to Terry as well. If Terry, there's still people out there that don't identify Terry McLaurin as a true number one wide receiver. A lot of people see him as a high-end two. I beg to differ. I think Terry's a legitimate number one in this league. You want to be viewed as a number one? He's got to take his game to the next level. There's still some things Terry needs to clean up as a route runner. There's still some things Terry needs to do in terms of being more impactful. I also think some of that is on the quarterback. Terry's open on plays, and he's just not getting the football. At the end of the day, Terry McLaurin is going to dictate how much he is going to be paid in free agency by the way he performs over the next 2 seasons. All right, it's really simple. If he goes out and balls this year and he's a 1,300-yard receiver, Terry McLaurin's going to get top dollar, okay? He's going to get top end of the market money, which he should get if he's putting up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with this next one being over 1,300 yards or being over 1,200 yards. Then you're going into a different, once you hit that 1,200-yard mark, you're in a different stratosphere. 1,000 is cool. That's great. That's the first benchmark. But then you want to take that next step, it's 1,200. Anything over 1,200 and you're like, whoa, this guy's balling. You get to 1,400, that's as high as it gets generally in this league. You don't see many receivers getting more than 1,400 yards in a year. So you start getting up there in terms of yardage, that's when we start talking about, man, this guy is at a different level. So if Terry wants 17, 18, 19, $20 million, he's going to have to string together a couple 1,000-yard seasons in a row. And if he gets to 12 in one of these years, that's going to open some eyes, and that's going to open up some wallets as well. So if you pay, let's just say they go out and they get a guy and they're paying him $15 million a year. If Terry exceeds what that guy has done, and that's how these contracts work. The agent says, hey, look at my guy. Look at this guy that's getting paid $16 million a year, and look at my guy's stats. My guy's stats are better than his, and we've done it with less production at the quarterback position. My guy deserves to be paid more than this guy. That's how agents go into the room with these front offices and try to get their client the most bang for their buck. So if Terry's putting up the numbers, he will get paid. And, if they pay a guy $19 million and Terry's outperforming that guy, then Terry's going to get 20, 21. If Terry's not, then he's got to realize where he is in the pantheon of wide receivers in this league and get a deal that fits where he belongs. But Terry is going to dictate how much he gets paid this next contract. So I don't worry about those things. They'll take care of themselves. If Terry is legitimately a baller, and we know he's a captain, he's selfless, he's everything you want in a modern day NFL wide receiver, he's a football team member. Like I don't see him playing anywhere else. He's a Washington player through and through. So long as he stays healthy and continues to ball, I don't see Anyway, he's not back here, no matter what the numbers may indicate. Enigma RJ, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Enigma RJ writes, "Sup, Lou? Sup, Enigma?" Says, with the cap as low as it is, that would mean it would make it impossible for Dallas to re-sign Dak or franchise tag him. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make it impossible. It makes it tough. But again, Dallas, this is the thing you have to understand. Their front office wasn't blindsided by the cap being reduced to $180 million. They knew this was coming, okay? They thought it was going to be even lower than this. They thought it would be 170 or 175. It's 180. So that's actually beneficial to Dallas. This thing could have been down as low as 170, 172, 175. It's at 180. So that actually helps Dallas. They knew that the salary cap was going down. This didn't just happen last week. They weren't counting on a $205 million salary cap and the numbers came back light and all of a sudden it's 180. They knew they were dealing with a reduced cap this year when they didn't get a long-term deal done. They already knew the stakes were very high, which is why they tried to get a deal long-term with Dak done last year. They knew the stakes were going to be even higher, potentially with a reduced cap. That's not going to change what they do at the quarterback position. If they want Dak back and they can't reach a long-term deal before the start of free agency, they're going to franchise tag him. Trust me, okay? So this doesn't change anything that Dallas is going to do. Worst case scenario, if Dallas franchise tags Dak and he's got to get that 120% increase, which comes with a repeat offender on the franchise tag, which would push, and I talked about this already, I think that pushes the number for Dak up to 37 and some change, 38, somewhere in there. That's a lot of money for one season. If they got to start cutting bait elsewhere, then so be it. They got to start restructuring deals. They'll figure it out. Teams always do. If that means Jalen Smith, who just got a deal not too long ago, they got to restructure his deal, they'll do it. If that means Tank Lawrence has to restructure his money and front load the contract and give him some more guarantees to reduce his base salary, so be it. They'll figure it out. Trust me. They'll get it done. Dak isn't going anywhere unless they want him to. And they don't. So I don't think it makes it impossible. I think Dak's going to be back in Dallas, and I really don't see any way that doesn't take place. Thank you for that super chat, Enigma RJ. Got another super chat. This next one is from Thomas Forsyth. Thank you for the super chat, Thomas Forsyth, who says, "Keep up the good work, Lou." I appreciate you, Thomas. Thank you so much for your support. Got another super chat. I really do appreciate you once again, Thomas, for that. Got another super chat from my man, Rob U. Tripling up. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U., who writes, "Thoughts on Carl Joseph if Cleveland lets him go?" Again, I don't anticipate Washington spending any real money now. Carl Joseph, I thought he actually played well for the Browns last year. Was it well enough for someone to extend him a multi-year contract? Is Carl Joseph even looking for a multi-year contract? Is he looking for a one-year contract just to get by on this reduced cap? And then when the new money comes in, this reminds me of an NBA situation a few years ago where the new TV money was coming in. The NBA was going to sign this really inordinate amount of money was going to be just flushed into the cap situation in the NBA. And a lot of guys didn't want to sign their new contracts until the new TV money came in, and there was going to be all this money out there. And so everybody was kind of slow playing it, taking 1-year deals or a 2-year deal, whatever it was, to get them to the point where that new money was going to come in, and then they wanted to hit it big. This kind of feels like that. Carl Joseph is a guy that he could look at the season he had last year and say, it was good. I'm not satisfied with it, though. I'll take a 1-year deal, prove it deal, bet on myself, if I ball this year, he's still a young guy. All right, he'll probably be 27, 28 starting next season. He said, look, I'm betting on myself, and if I ball out, I'll be able to sign a lucrative 3-year deal. And when the new money comes in, so we'll see what happens. Bottom line for me is I just don't think they're going to invest very heavily at the safety position. And let's be honest with ourselves. We got a log jam at safety. Not saying that it's one that you're really excited about, but let's talk about this. At free safety, you've got DeShazer Everett, you've got Jeremy Reeves, and you've got Troy Apke. Now, I know you're thinking Apke stinks, but Apke is one of the best, if not the best, special teams player on the entire team. Okay? So, just in case you're thinking that Apke's going to just disappear into thin air because he can't play, I beg to differ. Because they kept a guy on their roster in Carolina named Colin Jones, who to me, and I told you guys this in the summertime, I said Troy Apke is the new Colin Jones. This was a guy, a white boy that could run in Carolina, that was a core special teamer, that just always was on the roster because he could run, because he was a great special teams player, and he played safety. So it was like a triple whammy. In a pinch, this guy can go in. We don't want him in, but if he has to, we can put him in. Same thing. And they had another a receiver named Burnson or something like that. Same thing. Core special teamer, was always on their team because he could play special teams. I don't think Troy Apke is going anywhere. So you got 3 safeties there. You got Landon Collins, and you have Cameron Curl. You got 5 safeties, right? All of which are under contract, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think any of those guys are up. I'd have to check on DeShazer and Jeremy Reeves. I'm not quite sure on those guys 100%. But at the end of the day, you got a bunch of stuff there at safety to sort out. Don't really know if they're even in the market for a safety in free agency, that is. Now, it wouldn't shock me if they drafted another safety, somewhere in the draft. So that wouldn't shock me at all. Because to me, they really wanted to change the game. Adding a real game-changing free safety and a middle linebacker would be the 2 positional upgrades on defense that could take this defense from good to great. But again, these guys don't just grow on trees. So, a name that's been thrown out at the safety position, the ex-Colts first rounder out of Ohio State. Can't think of his name right now, but has had a ton of injuries early in his career. For whatever reason, outside of the injuries, didn't pan out in Indianapolis. And a lot of fans are like, what about this guy? It's a low risk, high reward type of proposition. What do you think? And I'm like, I'm all for it. I just don't know if they're looking for that. I just don't know if they're looking for that or not. Maybe they are. Maybe they are in the market for a low cost free safety. This free agency, I want to say this. This free agency period is so interesting because we don't really know what to expect. If they went into free agency with the same group they had last year, if Ron was kind of taking a step back, just overseeing the process, and Kyle Smith was still here, I would still be thinking along the lines of last year's free agency. And even that could be fool's gold to an extent because, remember, Ron had just gotten here. He didn't know this roster. And so he was bringing in a bunch of guys because Ron was trying to foster this environment that was hyper competitive. Hey, we compete. Let's just get as many guys in here as possible and just let them compete. And so they brought in, I told you, it wasn't a very high-profile free agency class and crop last year, but it was very, very active. We had a bunch of free agency signings last year. Remember, we talked about this all last offseason. It wasn't a big quality in terms of free agency. We weren't hitting the bullseye, but man, we had a boatload of darts and we were throwing them. All right. This year in free agency, is that the approach that they're going to take again? Now that they've got Marty Herney here, and they've got Martin Mayhew, and they've got Chris Ballard, or excuse me, Chris Polian, are they going to take that same approach? Let's grab a bunch of low-cost free agents, guys that aren't going to break the bank, that may sign 1 or 2 year deals. Let's bring them in here. Guys that may have underachieved at their last spot, but they're still young, still got plenty of football left in front of them. Let's bring as many of those guys in and see how many of them stick. Or do they say, okay, we're past that now. We know this roster. We've been here for a year. We know the guys that can play and can't play. We know the guys that we think are part of our future and the guys that aren't. So now we need to add to the nucleus that we have. So we don't mind spending on this guy or spending on that guy. I don't really know what the approach is going to be. I think that is fascinating because if the approach is, hey, let's be aggressive. Let's go out and let's get as many big-time free agents that we feel like can help us at specific positions, and then we'll add from to supplement the roster, and then we'll add in the draft and build in the draft like we're supposed to. That's a change from what we saw last year. That's a change because last year it was a 1-year deal here, 2-year deal, 2-year deal, 2-year deal, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, another 3-year deal for I think the longest deal we gave out last offseason was the 4-year, $40 million deal we gave to Kendall Fuller. Everybody else was either a 1 or 2-year deal. Logan Thomas, 2-year deal. J.D. McKissick, 2-year deal. Cornelius Lucas, 2-year deal. And then there were a bunch of 1-year deals in there. Like Kevin Pierre-Louis, 1-year deal. All right. Wes Schweitzer got a 3-year deal. That was another guy that we went out and we got 3-year deal. But for the most part, bunch of 1-year. Ronald Darby, 1-year deal. Bunch of 1 and 2-year deals for the most part handed out last offseason. So I want to see what the philosophy is. We're going to learn a lot about this front office because we really don't know. We're going to learn a lot about them this offseason in terms of what they believe in doing in free agency. So I think it's going to be an interesting offseason, but I don't know if the safety position, Carl Joseph, I don't know if they're even looking at the safety position. They could look at safety and say, if we find a guy in that same range that we spent last year, a 2-year, $9 million deal, a 1-year, $4.5 million. If Carl Joseph wants one of those deals, I don't think he's going to take that. The kid from Indianapolis, if he's willing to take one of those types of deals, 1 year, because the 1 year, $7.5 million prove-it deal, that's out the window when the salary cap is 180. If the salary cap were 200, yeah, you could throw a guy a 1 year, $7.5 million prove-it deal. But now that the cap's been reduced, that number comes down to like $4.5 million. So I don't know if they really look at safety and say, yeah, we need to do something there or not. He'd be interesting. I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I don't know if they're thinking that way. Got another super chat. This one is from Vincent Cole. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Cole. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Vincent Cole writes, are you opposed to trading for Orlando Brown? I am, because of what I think it's going to take. Orlando Brown appears to be, I can't confirm nor deny this, but it's a small sample size at the left tackle position, but he was dominant on that side. He was dominant on the right side. I shudder to think what it may take to get him. Now, he's essentially put a gun to the Ravens' head. And anytime you put a team in that kind of position where they don't really have a choice but to trade a player, it really lowers the value of that player and what you can get for them. So I don't know if the Ravens are in a position of power to say, I want a first round pick for Orlando Brown, but if he's a left tackle, you're going to get good compensation for him. This is the thing. If someone trades for him, they're going to have to pay him. That's always something that you factor into a deal is, do I have to pay this guy? You know, the reason it was easy for the Rams to give up 2 first-round picks for Matthew Stafford is because they didn't have to tear up his contract and extend him. Stafford was like, nah, I'm good. I'll just keep the contract that I have. I don't need new money right now. We can talk about that at a later date and time. Let's just focus on trying to win a Super Bowl. Well, that makes it a lot easier for me to just give up 2 1s knowing that I don't have to rip up his contract and give him new money. But a lot of times in these deals where a guy wants out, he wants out because a lot of times he wants a new contract. This is a little bit different because Orlando Brown wants to play a different position. That his team, his current team, is like, we already got a guy that we just paid money to play the left tackle position. We're not moving Ronnie Stanley. You're a right tackle on this team. And he's like, well, I'm not a right tackle. I'm a left tackle. Trade me. He wasn't a first-round pick. So if you trade for Orlando Brown, he is anticipating you paying him long-term, big-time money. So that's got to be factored into making any kind of a deal as well. So would I be opposed to giving up a second for Orlando Brown? I wouldn't be. I don't want to do that, though. I'd much rather spend my second-round pick on something in the draft. I'd much rather do that. If you ask me, I'll say it like this. I'd much rather spend the 19th overall pick on the future left tackle than go trade for Orlando Brown and have to pay him a big contract right now. I'd much rather just spend 19 on a left tackle. He's on a rookie deal. I don't have to worry about paying him for at least 4 years and have a guy that I think can be the future of the left tackle position than to go give up draft capital and have to turn around and pay Orlando Brown. I'm good. I'll pass on that. I'd much rather just stand pat at 19 and take the best tackle available that I believe in and move forward with that. If that were the situation, if that's how Washington felt, like we really need to upgrade left tackle, don't go trade for Orlando Brown. There's a bunch of tackles in this draft. High caliber tackles at that may fall into your lap at 19. So there's no reason to be over aggressive on the market when you can get one in the draft. That's kind of the way I felt last year. Like, it's going to hurt the tackle market because if you look in the draft and you say, I can get me a Tristan Wirfs last year, or I could get me a Mekhi Becton, or I could get me a Jedrick Wills, or I could get me, the kid from Georgia that the Giants took 4th overall. Bottom line is, bunch of tackles in the draft. I don't need to go out and get a guy in free agency and pay him, $90 million when I can get a guy on a rookie deal. That's kind of how I feel about Orlando Brown. I'm not opposed to trading for him, but we know the risk and the parameters and the rules to this game. I might as well just draft one at 19 and pay him a rookie contract. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Cole. Got one here from Rashad Fry. Rashad Fry writes, I would like to have a shutdown corner, a dog middle linebacker, Curtis Samuel and Allen Robinson at wide receiver, and a solid quarterback. Man, you are asking for a lot, Rashid. That's a lot of stuff in one offseason, man. You're not, more likely than not, it's possible to find a shutdown corner and a dog middle linebacker in this draft. Can you get both? It's not out of the realm of possibility. We've seen teams hit home runs in one draft and be aggressive. It's not out of the realm of possibility that at 19 you get Patrick Surtain II. At 51, you get a quality middle linebacker, or let's say you package up 51 and one of your threes, because you got 2 of them. And let's say that you are convinced Xavier Collins is a stud. And somehow he doesn't go in the first round. I just told you that Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, Xavier Collins wasn't in the first round. The only two linebackers that went in the first round were Michael Parsons and Jabril Cox. So let's say Xavier Collins is sitting there at 34 and you're like, man, we got to have this guy. And you package up your two at 51 and one of your threes and you go up to 34 and go get him. You could have just gotten a shutdown corner and a dog middle linebacker just like that. Now, the question is, you're not getting both Curtis Samuel and Allen Robinson. That's an or situation, not an and. You got to pick one. You're not getting both of them. You don't need both of them. You just need one of them. I told you I think it's going to be Curtis Samuel. Never, ever trust a man with two first names. I think it's going to be Curtis Samuel. And a solid quarterback. That guy could already be on the roster. So it's not inconceivable for what you just described to take place. The only thing I would tell you that is damn near and impossible is to get both Curtis Samuel and Allen Robinson. You're not getting both. That's an or situation, not an and. But I just gave you a scenario in which you got a shutdown corner. Potentially, we don't know what he's going to be. But I just gave you a scenario in which you could have gotten your corner at 19 and you turn around and trade up to 34 and you get your dog middle linebacker. And you roll with that. And then you get Curtis Samuel in free agency. And let's say that Kyle Allen or Taylor Heineke turns out to be a solid quarterback. Well, there you go. Everything you just asked for, you got it. Right there. Except, again, you're not getting both of those wide receivers. But, again, I don't think what I just explained to you is going to happen. But never say never. Got another super chat. This one is from Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat, Red Wings 01, who writes, "Sup, Louie? Is it time to let go of Alex and free up $24 million in cap? Stay frosty, my man." So, first things first. If we move on from Alex, you don't free up $24 million. It's more along the lines of 14. I think it's something like 13 and a half, 14, somewhere in that general vicinity. Either way, that's a lot of money. And yes, it is. And I've already said this. I don't think that Alex is going to be back in the capacity that he is currently in terms of his contract. I think Alex acknowledged that by saying he would like to play somewhere. I think he understands the business side of this and understands that even if he's back in Washington, it's not going to be under the same contract that he currently has. Now, if he's willing to restructure and Washington is interested in having him back at a much lower number, then that's something that they could talk about. I personally don't want him on the roster. That's just me. Now, me not wanting him on the roster could end up being a death sentence to our 2021 season, because not having him on the roster and relying on Taylor Heineke and or Kyle Allen could be a foolish mistake. Both of those guys could end up being injury prone. Both of those guys could end up being total trash. And we could be saying, damn, it'd be nice to have Alex Smith ready to come in and save the day again. But that's kind of where I'm at with mine right now. It's like, hey, I would just like to wash my hands clean of that situation. I really appreciate everything Alex has done for us, but I'd like to move on. And I'd like to just start with a clean slate, give one of these guys an opportunity. If they don't seize that opportunity, next year is another year to find your quarterback of the future. If you don't get it this year, you know, for all I know, 19 could be Mac Jones, and we could move on from that. For all I know, one of our third-round picks could be Kyle Trask, and we move on with that. For all I know, they could be eyeballing and targeting a quarterback in this year's draft as the quarterback of the future. We don't know. Does it sound like they're willing to wait on a young guy? Sounds like they're ready to win now with a veteran. That's why every veteran quarterback you hear, we're tied to him. Whether it's Sam Darnold, or it's Derek Carr, or it's Marcus Mariota, or it's Matthew Stafford, our name always comes up because we're looking to upgrade the position. Ron told us going into the offseason, we're going to look at every situation. We're going to explore all, A-L-L, all caps, all situations. All right? So, I don't know if Alex is going to be back. If I had to guess, right now, I've said this already, Alex wants to play football. I told you that before he came out and made the statement, or I shouldn't say he made the statement. The statement was made that Alex is looking to play somewhere. I told you guys that after the 60 Minutes piece, before the Super Bowl, I think it was championship weekend when that 60 Minutes piece ran. And I said, that doesn't sound like a man that's ready to hang it up. Might have been the divisional round that they played that in. Whatever the case may be. I said, that doesn't sound like a man that's looking to retire. I just hope they don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe of Alex Smith playing last season and winning 5 games in a row and all of that good jazz and feeling like if he's healthy, he gives us the best chance. I felt like Ron gave me a vote of confidence at the end of the season. I think it was week 16 or so when he was asked, if Kyle Allen was healthy, do you think you would have been able to do the same thing? Or he said, do you think any of the other quarterbacks on this roster could have gotten you to where you are right now? And he said, yeah, Kyle Allen. Do you think Kyle Allen could have gotten us here? That gives me confidence that they realize, wow, Alex's performance last year was heroic and it was unexpected and it was really wild to see. It's a great story. It wasn't tremendous. Like, Alex didn't light the world on fire. He was Alex Smith. He was Alex Smith. He was dun-dun-dun-dun, Captain Checkdown. He was the same Alex Smith we've always come to know and love. You can find that anywhere, man. You can find that guy. So, I think Alex's days in Washington may be numbered. He's definitely not coming back on the contract he currently has. I can assure you of that. They're going to get, if not all of that $13.5 million back, they're going to get a nice chunk and lump sum of that back. That's for certain. Vincent Cole, thank you for doubling up. Double up. Greatly appreciate you, Vincent Cole, for doubling up, who writes, Trayvon Moehrig, round 1 or 2. I heard he's the top safety this year. Yep, safety out of TCU. He's a ball hawk in the middle of the field. Last year, I thought the safety out of Alabama, Xavier, what's its face, that the Giants ended up getting in the second round, thought he was a steal. Thought he was a first round caliber safety. And he didn't go in until the second round. And I thought the Giants got a steal. He ended up getting hurt, missed a huge chunk of 2020, but I think that guy can play ball. The league essentially passed on the safety position last year in the first round of the draft. And I'm not saying that it's a trend all of a sudden. If a guy can play and they see him as a difference maker, they're going to pull the trigger in the first round. I just don't know if Trayvon Moehrig moves the needle enough to become a first-round pick. He's definitely gone in the second round without any questions if he doesn't go in the first round. But, again, there are only 32 slots in the first round. Like, everybody can't be a first-round pick. He may be one of those guys on the outside looking in. So, I do think he's the top safety in this year's draft. But, again, I got more homework to do. So, I shouldn't make statements like that right now. But I would guess right now, without looking at the crop of safeties, having watched film on all of them, I would guess he's the best safety in this draft, if I had to guess. But again, I have film work to do. So, let's see. Thank you for that super chat. Got another super chat here. This next one is from this next super chat is from Benjamin Kimmich. Thank you for the super chat, Benjamin. Greatly appreciate you. Got another super chat here from my man Barrett Downing. As always, greatly appreciate you, BD, who writes, how many guys did we have sit out the year due to COVID, and how many of those guys will have a spot? We didn't have many. We weren't ravaged by guys that decided to pass on the season due to COVID. I think only two guys come to mind, and that was the safety turned linebacker, Josh Harvey Clemens, and the other was the defensive lineman, the interior defensive lineman. The hell was his name? The one out of Florida, Caleb Brantley. I think those were the only two guys. Excuse me, and correct me if I'm wrong. There may have been a third, but those were the two guys that I remember that decided to pass on 2020 due to COVID-19. So Brantley of those two is the only one that feels like there's a home for him here, because remember, those contracts toll, so they didn't lose a year, or they didn't get a year closer to free agency. It's just like their contracts froze. So Brantley is very interesting, because if you're gonna lose Tim Settle in free agency after the 2021 season, it'd be nice to have a Caleb Brantley still here to give you the depth you need to round out that defensive tackle room. So Brantley, to me, seems like the more sure thing in terms of a guy that could make this football team. Josh Harvey Clemens, to me, is going to have a chance to come in and compete. Hopefully he kept himself in tremendous shape. We need a guy that can run. But I don't know. Remember, he's from a holdover from the last regime. Don't know how they feel about him. If he comes in and they don't love him, he could easily be gone just as fast as he came back. So but those are the two guys that I remember specifically. Thank you for that super chat. Got another one here from my man Vincent Coe. Thank you for tripling up, Vincent, who writes, I think the tackle class this year is pretty deep. It is. Absolutely deep. I thought last year's class was relatively deep. I thought that there was this cutoff point, which there usually is with these tackles, where it might be 5 guys that are elite, and then after that there's a steep drop-off. Now, there still could be some quality additions later on, but, you know, there's this level of play that is here, and then obviously as those guys come off the board, it starts to tail off. But I think there is a number of tackles, or there are a number of tackles in this year's draft that are going to be first-round picks, and guys that you feel like can really play ball. I mean, it's probably at least 5, maybe even 6 guys that probably are going to ultimately have a first-round grade when it's all said and done. For me, I can't speak for anybody else. I mean, Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, you got Christian Darrisaw, or Darrisaw. I feel like I'm forgetting a couple of the kid from USC is a big guy. I'm probably missing 2 or 3 other names that could potentially be first round picks. There are a bunch of guys. Samuel Cosme from Texas is another guy that could sneak into the first round. Like, this thing is loaded at the tackle position. So again, it's going to be hard for but if you miss out on those guys in the draft, that's when you could call Baltimore. I don't know if Baltimore gets anything for him. Generally, guys like him get traded on draft night, not before it. Usually, draft night incites a lot of action because you missed out on a guy you wanted. All right, here's a replacement right here. And Baltimore is going to want compensation this year. They want to be able to to recoup the value of losing him now. So they may not get that, but that's what they want to do, ultimately. Rob Yu, thank you for your 4th super chat of the night. Greatly appreciate you, Rob Yu, who writes, people are underestimating how well Darby played. I don't know why that is. You know, I think it's because he didn't have any interceptions or something. But Ronald Darby was our best corner this season, and honestly, it wasn't close. When we're talking consistency, it's funny because I remember after week 1 thinking to myself, oh, shit, here we go. Remember he gave up that long 3rd and 23, I think it was 23 or 24, early in that ball game. Apke took a poor angle. Darby got beat. And you're like, how are you giving that up on 3rd and forever, dude? No, you can't do that. And then there was another deep ball that Carson Wentz missed that was open, and the receiver had got behind Darby and Apke again. And so you're thinking, man, this is some bullshit. This is what Eagles fans tried to warn us about. But after that, there was the Dallas game on Thanksgiving where he got beat by Amari Cooper a couple of times, and that was it. You know, I thought he had one of his worst performances. I shouldn't say worst. He wasn't awful. He wasn't good enough against Tampa Bay. But really, nobody in the secondary was any good against Tampa Bay. And we knew that they could do that if we didn't get pressure, and we didn't for the most part. So Darby was outstanding. You're talking about 17 games he played in. For the first time in his career, he played a full 16 games. Played 17 games last year, including the playoff game. And out of those 17 games, he wasn't good in 3 of them. Or he wasn't at his best in like 3 of them. To me, I don't really know what more you want out of Ronald Darby. He was, to me, the most consistent corner we had last season. Thought he was phenomenal. I'd love to have him back. The only thing that scares me is that we get him back and he goes back to getting injured all the time. But I'm going to put all my trust in this training staff, because for the first time in a long time, we get a brand new staff, a brand new training staff, a brand new medical staff. We get all these new people in here, and we don't have any injuries. Is that coincidental? I don't know. I just know what I know. And what I know is that we get a brand new staff in here after all these people complaining about this medical staff, including Trent Williams, all right? And we go from one of the most injured teams in the league to one of the healthier teams in 2020. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So I'm going to bank on the fact that this staff knows something, does a good job of preparing these guys to stay healthy, and then if we re-sign Ronald Darby, he's going to stay healthy. That's what I'm going to bank on. Thank you for that super chat, Rob Yu. Got another super chat here from Red Wings 01. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Red Wings 01. Who writes, with J.J. Watt being on the market and the cap limit being reduced, what are the chances Ryan Kerrigan stays one more year? Does Reuben Foster deserve one last shot at camp? J.J. Watt being on the market definitely makes a guy like Ryan Kerrigan less attractive. But guess what? There's only one J.J. Watt, and only one team's going to get him. And so for the other, because look, J.J. Watt was on Twitter the other day and on social saying, man, this free agency thing is crazy. You know why? Because for the first time in his career, and this goes back to college, he wasn't highly sought after and highly recruited, okay? For the first time in his career, maybe even in his life, he's wanted. Everyone is beating down his door. His agent's phone is ringing off the hook. Everyone wants a piece. And remember, unlike guys that are currently under contract that don't have their contract expire until the start of the new league year, he's already free. Free. So he can go sign with whoever he likes. He can sign wherever he likes. Yeah. He didn't have to wait. So Tennessee's interested. Buffalo's interested. Pittsburgh's interested. Green Bay's interested. Tampa Bay's interested. And the list goes on and on and on. Everybody's interested. And why shouldn't they be? He's still playing at a relatively high level. He's not the J.J. Watt of 5 years ago, but he's still J.J. freaking Watt. But guess what? Only one of those teams is going to get him. And for all the teams that miss out, and you feel like you're close, Ryan Kerrigan is the next best thing. More likely than not. And look, some crazy things could happen. Somebody said, hey, what about Von Miller getting cut as a cap casualty in Denver? Highly unlikely, but he's 32 years old, coming off of a major knee injury. Again, what's to say Denver says, you know what? Hey, Von, it's been real, bruh. Really appreciate the Super Bowl back in 15, man. You were awesome. But you got to go. Then Von Miller goes straight to the top of the list. At the end of the day, Ryan Kerrigan already told you what he wants. For those of you still hanging on to Ryan Kerrigan, let it go. All right? He says he wants to start. Look around at this roster. If we're healthy, is there anywhere for Ryan Kerrigan to start? Let's just say that Ryan Kerrigan is willing to say, I don't have to start, but I would like to play in at least 50% of the snaps. Again, let me stop you. Look around this football team. Look at this roster. And tell me, is there a way for Ryan Kerrigan, if a team plays against us and has 70 offensive snaps, look around and tell me, is there a way to get Ryan Kerrigan on the field for 35 of them? I can tell you right now, if we're healthy, the answer is no. Because you don't, and neither do I, want to see Chase Young or Montez Sweat off the field for 35 snaps. Now, I've long advocated for, in obvious passing situations, reduce one of their asses inside and get Kerrigan on the field. They didn't do it last year, so why in the hell would you assume they're going to do it this year? You can't. So, at the end of the day, he wants to start. He thinks he's got a lot left to offer someone in a starting capacity. That's not here in Washington. So more likely than not, Ryan Kerrigan, even if it's a one-year deal somewhere, isn't coming back to Washington. And that's okay. We had a great run. He set the all-time sack record here in Washington. We'll never forget him. He'll come back 2 or 3 years after he retires. We'll throw his name up in the Ring of Honor. I don't think they'll retire his jersey because they don't do that in Washington, but maybe they'll make it a protected number. They shouldn't. Okay, he was good. He wasn't Hall of Fame worthy. He's not going into the Hall of Fame. They don't need to retire 91. Look, he was a great player here for a decade. Love him to death. Let him go. Let him go. I don't think he's going to be back. Reuben Foster does deserve another shot in camp if they decide he deserves another shot in camp. We haven't seen Reuben Foster do jack squat diddly poo squat here in Washington. So honestly, I don't get attached to guys that haven't done it here. So I learned my lesson with Junior Gillette. I don't get attached to guys that haven't done it here. So if they decide Reuben Foster deserves another opportunity here in Washington and they decide to re-sign him to a one-year contract, awesome. Love to see it. If they say, hey, Reuben, it's been great. You did everything we asked you to do, but we're going to go in a different direction, I'm cool with that too. Perfectly fine with that as well. So we'll see what happens. I think he deserves an opportunity. He's done everything they asked him to do to this point. He's been a good soldier on and off the field, more importantly. And if he's healthy, we know he can be a difference maker. So I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, and I hope they are considering that. Benjamin Kimmich, thank you for the super chat. And double up. Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. My man Ben writes, sign Fuller, draft Lance, sign middle linebacker, Draft cornerback and safety depth. Sign Fuller. Who is this Fuller that you speak of? Draft Trey Lance. Again, we're not in a position to just say draft him. We'd have to trade up to get him. Sign a middle linebacker. Not really a lot there. It's slim pickings, as I mentioned. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Draft a cornerback and safety for depth. That may take place regardless of anything happening. I think that's something that they definitely have to take a look at, especially cornerback. Not necessarily safety as much after hitting on Cameron Curl last year, but definitely cornerback is a must. I wouldn't be shocked if they took multiple corners in the 2021 draft. We'll see what happens. Got another super chat here from Beloved Rain 44. Thank you for the super chat, Beloved Rain 44, who writes, the guy you've been talking about that Indy drafted was Malik Hooker. Thank you. I could not remember his name. I saw his face. I remember the one-hand interception he had against Jacksonville. That was crazy. Or it might have been the Titans. But I couldn't remember his name to save my life. He says, I would like us to draft, if they fall to us, Patrick Surtain II or Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a guy you're going to have to go up and get. He won't fall to us at all. Now, Surtain has an outside shot at falling to us, especially if teams view Caleb Farley as the best corner in this draft. Don't know if that's the case. Remember, all it takes is one team to fall in love with Patrick Surtain before 19, and he's gone. But if the draft falls in a way that allows Surtain, and there are a number of teams that could look at him and say, we can't pass this guy up, he's too good. And so he could not get to 19. But I could see a situation where teams decide to go tackle instead of corner, decide to go tight end instead of corner, decide to go wide receiver instead of corner. And all of a sudden you look up at 19 and Patrick Surtain II is sitting there. I could see that happening. Definitely not happening with Michael Parsons. But again, the draft is a crapshoot. That's why it's so much fun. That's why so many people get invested in this, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And yes, Malik Hooker is the guy that I was talking about. That's one of those guys you could probably sign on a one-year deal because he's looking to prove it. So he doesn't want to sign your 3-year deal because it's not going to be a ton of money. So he's a guy that you could probably get on a 1-year, $5.5 million prove it deal. That's the kind of guy that I could see them investing in for 1 year. And then if he kills it, then you could decide to bring him back or not bring him back. But I don't know if they're looking in that direction or not. Let's see. Billy Ampifo, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Billy Ampifo writes, you always say it's only worth trading up if you love a guy. Well, reports are Ron loved Justin Fields. I think we're trading up. I hope those reports are wrong and that's not the case, because I don't love Justin Fields. I've had a chance to comb through the film already. I've already made a determination on him. We'll talk about that next week on the draft show. I don't want to get too much into Justin Fields now. We'll do that next week. But I can tell you that if they love that guy, I think it could be a mistake. That's all I'm going to say. I hope that's, and we've heard those reports. I heard those same reports that Washington is reportedly really smitten with Justin Fields. He's not trash. He's not Dwayne Haskins. Remember, I didn't like Dwayne Haskins at all. I don't feel that way about Justin Fields. I just don't think he's better than a lot of these quarterbacks, in the draft. If you're going to trade up for somebody, it shouldn't be him. That's all I'm saying. But that's nor here nor there. We'll talk about that a little bit later on down the line when we get to my Draft Prospects 101 series next Wednesday at 8:30 p. I hope you're wrong, though. I hope we're not trading up for Justin Fields. If we do, again, what are you going to do? all you can do is support. But no, I hope that's not the case. Rob U, thank you for your 5th super chat of the night. Can't see you. Really appreciate you. Rob U writes, Lou, I hope we stay at number 19. No trades, no giving up young talent, though it is highly unlikely. Trey Lance could slide. Stranger things have happened. You're absolutely right. I don't think he's going to slide, however. But stranger things have happened. The draft is a crapshoot. And of the 4 quarterbacks that are going to go in the top 10, he's the one that is the most raw. He's the guy with the least amount of tape, the least amount of experience. He's the guy that didn't play at a Power 5 conference school. Well, you could say that about Zach Wilson as well. He didn't play at a Power 5 school. He played at an independent, but he played against Division I talent. So at the end of the day, Lance is the one that could slide. But I think he'll be taken just off of sheer upside. I don't see him getting out of the top 10. I don't see him getting past Carolina at 8. So, you're right, though. Stranger things have happened. I think as he starts to slide, someone comes and salvages him before 19. Whether that's Washington or not, I can't say. But if he gets to 11, 12, 13, somebody's going to come up and get him. You know, one of those thirsty teams in the back. Like, whoa, wait. What is this guy doing here? Hey, we better strike while the iron's hot now. We may not have another shot at getting a kid like this at that number. Let's go get him. So, he's not getting to 19. That's how I feel. But I didn't think Drew Lock was going to get to, 41 or 39 or wherever the hell he was selected in the second round either. So, as you've mentioned, stranger things have happened. Thank you for that super chat. Landry Balbin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Landry Balbin writes, Hey, Louie, I don't think it's worth spending an early draft pick on the left side of the offensive line. We got Sadiq, plus Cornelius and Jaron are solid too. I feel the same way. I stated this already. I don't think the offensive line is in peril as some of you out there may think. A lot of times when I ask you guys, what are your top, 5 needs on this team, or I ask you to give me the list of needs that you feel like we have, I always see offensive line on there. And I'm like, I really don't know why the offensive line is on that list, especially if they bring back Brandon Sheriff. We've got depth just about everywhere on the offensive line, with the exception of maybe guard. That's the only position that you're not quite sure of, because we don't know if we can count on Wes Martin or not. But if Wes Martin is a solid backup in this league, I feel like we've got depth everywhere on the offensive line. We proved it last year at tackle. We were down to our 4th tackle. Our 4th tackle. We had to take our right tackle and move him to left tackle so that we could put our 4th tackle in, who's comfortable at right tackle, in David Sharp. We were down Jaron Christian. We were down Cornelius Lucas. We were down to our 4th tackle. 5th if you count the 2 starters. So, in my mind, I'm like, I don't think we need anything. We bring everybody back. We're fine. We just got to fit. And as you mentioned, I didn't even insert Sadiq Charles into this mix. I don't know, and I stated this, I think, last week or one of these shows that I've done recently. I remember saying this. I don't know how they feel about Sadiq Charles, because remember, they tried to kick him inside during that first Giants game. And he got hurt second play of the game. And so I don't know if from this point forward they view him as a guard, or if that was just them trying to get Sadiq on the field and they saw guard as a way to do it because they felt good about what they were getting from the tackle position and they didn't want to ruffle any feathers at that point of the season. And they said, once we hit the reset button in the offseason, we're going to give him another opportunity at tackle because that's why we drafted him. If that's the case, you definitely don't need to draft anybody at tackle. So I don't see us investing an early round pick in the offensive line either, which is why I think that these first 2 mock drafts from DJ have been a little bit off base in terms of Washington, because I don't know if he really has a true sense of what it is we're after. But then again, we don't even have a true sense of how they feel and what it is they're after. We may be overrating the way they feel about this offensive line. They may be thinking, man, we got through that year. Whew, hell of a job, by the offensive line coach. And but we can't go into next season like this again. They could be thinking that. So in any event, I'm with you. I don't think it's worth investing an early pick. But if they did, I wouldn't be mad. Got another super chat. Let's see. This next super chat is from Brandon McCloskey. My man, Brendan McCloskey. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Brendan McCloskey, who writes, "Hey, Lou, did you see the mock draft where it had us taking Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech, in the first round? I would not be mad at that move. I already mentioned that on the last show, as a matter of fact, when I talked about the Chris Polian hire. I also talked about Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. I just actually talked about it 2 seconds ago. So obviously you super chatted this before I had a chance to speak on it. But as I just mentioned, DJ had us taking Daniel Jeremiah. For those of you unaware of who DJ is, Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network. He's the guy that took over in the lead chair as their lead draft analyst when Mike Mayock took the job for the Raiders as their general manager. DJ stepped into that number one role and picked the ball up where Mike Mayock left off, and he's done a phenomenal job. He has a podcast with Bucky Brooks called Move the Sticks. If you're a football junkie like me, it's a must listen. So he has us taking Christian Darrisaw. I don't think that's what he had. The first one was Kadarius Toney. I thought that was a farce. I think this is not as big a farce as Kadarius Toney at 19, because we're gonna select or we're going to sign a free agent wide receiver. So at 19, wide receiver is not even an option unless there is a guy there similar to Dallas when they took the Oklahoma receiver last year, where they said, look, man, we don't really need receiver, but this is too good to pass up. Like, he has no business being here. And so they took him. Unless that happens, one of the Bama boys is around, Waddle or Devontae Smith, and look, I'm not even going to mention Jamar Chase because I know he's gone in the top 10. But if one of those Bama boys are sitting there, that's the only way we take a receiver at 19. Outside of that, there is no way in hell we're spending 19 on Kadarius Toney. The only way I will even consider that we'll take a receiver is if we do nothing in free agency. And if we did that, I would lose my mind, because I've told you all along that the one thing I can guarantee you this offseason, I can't guarantee you anything else. The one thing I can guarantee you is that we are going to get some reinforcements at receiver in free agency. That's the one thing I can assure you of. Nothing else. But I don't think Christian Darrisaw is going to be the pick either. But it makes more sense than Kadarius Toney. So I'll say that. I don't see us getting it, though. Let's go to the next super chat. This one is from my man, JP. John Perez. Greatly appreciate you, JP, who writes, I'd love to take Surtain if he makes it to 19. It wouldn't shock me if he did. I'm not banking on him making it to 19. I think both of the top two corners, in Farley and Surtain, and you can put them in whatever order you like, I think both of them are gone by 19, personally. But stranger things, as somebody said earlier, stranger things have happened. And again, when you're talking 4 quarterbacks going, and you're talking potentially 3 or 4 tackles going, and you're talking about a tight end going in the top 10 and a linebacker potentially going in the top 10, and you're talking 3 receivers going in the top 15 potentially. You start to add these numbers up and you get closer to 19. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying anything is possible. You got to know that at least one or two defensive ends are going to go. Teams are always looking for the next big thing as a pass rusher. So you got to assume one or two of those guys are going to come off the board. Before you know it, you're going to look up. We're going to get damn close to 19. And there's going to be a guy or two that you didn't expect to be there, still there. So it could be Surtain. I told you, he's one of the guys that I think could be there. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wouldn't be shocked on draft night if we get to 19 and Surtain is there. I'd be more shocked if one of the Alabama receivers were there at 19 than Surtain. Got another super chat. This one is from King of the North. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North. Greatly appreciate you, my man, King of the North. Writes, coming in late, so sorry if already asked. Probably not. A lot of times when you guys say that, the question that you're asking hasn't been asked because they're usually really specific questions. But he says, who do you want to see us target at linebacker in free agency? Hasn't been asked. I really don't have a massive preference. Because there are not a lot of guys that are available. There is one guy that I would like to see us go after. He's not a middle linebacker. He's a weak side backer. But he's a damn good one. And if he's healthy, he's a difference maker. And boy, can he run. And that's Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. I'll talk about him a little bit later on when we get to our free agency portion of the show. But Matt Milano is a guy that I am again, I'm going to break all of this stuff down because I don't think we're going to even have a chance to get a sniff at Matt Milano, and I'll tell you why later, but that's one of my free agency crushes right now is Bills linebacker Matt Milano. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North. Got another super chat here from Captain Gaming. Greatly appreciate you, Captain Gaming, who writes, according to Field Yates, we will be signing Ryan Fitzpatrick this offseason. I don't buy that. I don't. To me, a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense here unless you don't plan on re-signing Kyle Allen. If you re-sign Kyle Allen, then you already have Ryan Fitzpatrick on your team in some capacity. Maybe, not the experience that Fitzpatrick has, but in Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke, you've got guys that are on a similar track to that of Ryan Fitzpatrick. You don't need to go out and get Ryan Fitzpatrick. It doesn't make any sense. The only way a Ryan Fitzpatrick signing makes a ton of sense is if you're going to get a rookie quarterback and you're not going to bring back Kyle Allen. And so you're going to keep Heineke, the rookie, and Fitzpatrick, and you're going to give Heineke and Fitzpatrick an opportunity to battle for the starting job, and the rookie's going to learn from all of this. That's the only way that makes sense. I still don't want to do that. If you're going to go with a scenario similar to that, I'd much rather it just be Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke battling it out for the number one spot with a young guy on the roster watching and learning and getting ready to play down the road. I'd rather go about it that way than bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I can tell you this, you bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2021 in terms of the postseason, finito, done, finished. You don't have a chance. It's in the NFL, in the actual handbook, that if Ryan Fitzpatrick is your starting quarterback, you can't go to the playoffs. So I don't want to condemn the season before it even starts. Again, you guys know where I stand on this quarterback thing. I don't want to sign anybody. I don't want to trade for anybody if they're not a clear upgrade. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a lot of things. He's a gamer. He's a hell of a competitor. I told you he's fun to watch. I just don't want to watch him on my team. So, again, let me reiterate. If it's not a clear upgrade here, or it's not a clear upside guy here, which he is neither, I don't want him. Period. That's how I'm approaching the quarterback position. Either you go with what we got, you go out and get you a veteran, you go and trade for a young guy with upside, or you draft a young guy. That is it. I don't want to keep spinning a circle here. I don't want to keep running on the hamster wheel. Going and getting Ryan Fitzpatrick for what? You're running in a circle. If you're going to do that, you might as well hold on to goddamn Alex Smith. At least you'll win more games. But again, I don't know if Field Yates knows what the hell he's talking about, if he even said that. I'm going to take your word for it. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. Let's just hope that doesn't happen. Thank you for that super chat, Captain Gaming. Got another super chat. This next one is from Billy Ampifo. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Billy Ampifo. Greatly appreciate you. Billy Amp writes, O-line not bad. We can upgrade. Don't have to be the first. Walker Little, projected first round talent, falling because of opt-out to be a late second, early third. There'll be plenty of guys available. You're right. It doesn't have to be a first round selection. I don't mind them feeling like they need, like, I'm not sitting here telling you we got all the answers on the offensive line. I'm not telling you that we don't need to upgrade left tackle. What I'm telling you is we don't need to invest, like you said, early. That's it. If they took one of those third-round picks and decided to spend it on the offensive line, I love it. If they took a second-round pick and said, I'm going to spend it on the offensive line, I love it. I don't mind them investing, because when you don't invest on the lines, defensive, offensive, when you neglect them, that's when you look up and your shit looks like Dallas's offensive line did last year. And you say, what the hell just happened? Well, injuries happen, and you haven't invested, and your shit got old overnight. You didn't invest in free agency with quality backups. You can't ignore the offensive line. We haven't done that, though. You know, we haven't ignored the offensive line. We've spent draft capital on the offensive line. It comes in the later rounds. You know, it doesn't usually come in the first round or so. But it doesn't matter. As long as you're investing and you're going out in free agency and you're finding some quality guys, you'll be fine. I think we're fine. Could we upgrade left tackle? You're damn right. Sadiq Charles could be the upgrade that we're talking about right now. He could be it. We don't know that he's not. Could we upgrade left guard? I love Wes Schweitzer, but could we do better? You're damn right we could do better than Wes Schweitzer. But I love Wes Schweitzer. If he's starting, I don't have a problem with it. If he's backing up, even better. Even better. So I'm with you on that. Doesn't have to be early to invest. But if they invest, I don't have a problem with it. The offensive line is not as bad as some of you think, but I'm not telling you that they don't need to upgrade. You should always be looking to get better. And our offensive line is far from dominant. Thank you for the super chat, Billy Ampifo. Got another super chat from Red Wings 01. Thank you for tripling up, Red Wings 01, who writes, are Mac Jones and Kyle Trask viable alternatives to the Big Four? Would they fall to us? Yes, they are alternatives and very viable ones, I may add. Mac Jones probably more viable than that of Kyle Trask, depending on who you ask. But, yes, they are alternatives. Here's the thing. This is where you kind of get into, okay, how much of an alternative? If you want Mac Jones, and I've said this already, and I'll say it again, if you want Mac Jones and you're Washington, you got to do it at 19. You won't get another crack at him at 51 in the second round. Now, I just told you, I gave you a scenario in which, you know, Washington drafts at 19 and then packages up 51 and one of the 2 third-round picks. Remember, we got 2 this year. There could be a third with compensatory picks when they start handing those out. I don't remember who we lost in free agency last year, if it was anybody of note. But we signed a bunch of guys, but none of them got big contracts. And if somebody or, one or two guys left and got big contracts elsewhere, we could be in line. I don't think we're in line for a third rounder in terms of a compensatory pick. I don't remember anybody leaving us and getting a massive deal. Preston Smith got one 2 years ago, not last year. I don't think anybody left us of note last year and got a massive deal elsewhere. So I'm thinking, but I don't think we're going to qualify for anybody. But anyway, we got 2 third rounders. So if they were to package up 51 in one of those third rounders and they say, hey, I want to come up to, say, 40 to get Trask, he'd be there, 45 or so. Let's say that they just moved up 6 picks. He was there at 45, and because I think he'll be there. Not Trask or Mac Jones, excuse me. I'm talking about Mac Jones. Let's say that you get to the second round. He didn't get picked in the first, which highly unlikely. I think Mac Jones is a first round pick every day of the week. In terms of somebody's going to take him at the back end of the first round just to get that 5th-year option, just to get that last year just in case. Even if they don't need him right now, just to draft and stash. I could see Pittsburgh taking him if he's not gone by the time they select in the first round with their situation at quarterback. Yeah, they got Dwayne. To hell with Dwayne. They're not banking on Dwayne being their future. I could see them taking Mac Jones. I could see Indianapolis, who just traded for Carson Wentz, saying, hey, I don't know about this kid. Yeah, we just drafted Jacob Eason last year in the draft. Who gives a shit? We spent the 4th round pick on him. We don't know what the hell he is. Just in case Wentz stinks, I got insurance. So I'll take this kid, Mac Jones. I can see them spending the 1st round pick on him. I doubt that because they just traded for Wentz, but you never know. You know what I'm saying? And we could go. The list goes on. New England could be like, we'll take Mac Jones. I don't even know where the hell the Patriots draft. It's before 19 though, and they could say, hell, we need a quarterback. He fits what we do in New England. He looks a lot like Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll take him. So he's going to be a 1st round pick. So all I'm saying to you is both of them are alternatives to the big 4, but Jones is more of a viable alternative because you're going to have to take him in the 1st round, whereas Trask, he might not get drafted to the 3rd round, I can see him going in the 2nd, but we've seen this league move away from the immobile guys that can't move. Like Kyle Trask is another one of these guys that's just really not fleet of foot. So I could see him just falling off the damn table. Mac Jones can move a little bit. It isn't great, but it's like Andy Dalton-ish. It's good enough. Kyle Trask runs like he's got a whole ankle weight on both ankles. A nice 10-pounder on both ankles. I just don't know if those type of guys get any love in the NFL draft. So we'll see what happens with a guy like Kyle Trask. But both of them are viable options for sure. And I wouldn't mind either one of them on this football team. I would prefer an extended play, athletic guy. You know my preference. But if you can dissect a defense, you can see it quickly, you can get it out. Kirk Cousins was that guy. I don't mind at all. Better athlete than both of those guys that we just talked about, by the way, just so you know. Anyway, I digress. Got another super chat. This next one is from my man Landry Bulbin. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. My man L.B. Little brother. Writes, hey Lou, what do you think of Mariota coming here to Washington? He is mobile and a good fit for our offense. He is so underrated. I already told you how I feel about Marcus Mariota. I told you guys before the Mariota rumors began that we were interested in this, that, and the third. I told you I would love to have Marcus Mariota in Washington. I told you guys that a long time ago. I think I even brought it up after he had that performance against the Chargers on a Thursday night. I said, I don't know if you guys were watching Marcus Mariota. I'd sure like to take a second look at Mariota. I'd love to take a second look and see what Act 2 of Marcus looks like. I'd love to have the next chapter in the book of Marcus. Can't speak for any of you out there. Won't try to. But I'd love to see what Marcus Mariota Act 2 looks like here in Washington. So the Raiders are probably going to move him. Sounds like when they signed to Nathan Peterman, and I brought this up, and I don't know if I did it on my podcast, I don't know if I did it with you all, but I know I brought it up, and I think I've brought this up several times now, where when they signed Nathan Peterman, that said to me, you're looking to move one of these dudes. And they're not looking to move Derek Carr, so people can come off of that. They're not looking to move Derek Carr, and they shouldn't be looking to move Derek Carr. They're looking to move Mariota. And while his contract is really interesting, and a lot of things have come out about his contract and how there are a bunch of escalators and bonuses, and if he plays, the contract balloons to this number and that number. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares about any of it. It's not like if he comes here and he wins and we go to the playoffs and he plays X amount of snaps, he's going to be making $50 million. It's like, I think it's like $21 million. Yeah, it's a lot more than you would like to have invested. But you're giving up probably a fourth. I told you, I'm not giving up anything more than a day 3 pick for Marcus Mariota. I've told you guys this. I said somebody might get desperate to get a bunch of teams bidding against one another, and he's a late day 2, meaning he's a third round pick. That's late day 2. For me, that's too rich for my blood. I'm not giving up anything on the first 2 days for Marcus Mariota. Sorry, not doing it. He's a 4th, 5th round pick at best guy for me. 4th rounder, I'd be willing to part ways with the 4th round pick to find out if this guy could be my franchise quarterback or not. I got no problems giving up a 4th round pick. Let's do it. But I like what I've seen. I've always felt like Mariota had some more to give. And for whatever reason in Tennessee, he didn't. I wasn't the biggest Mariota fan coming out of Oregon. I thought he threw to a lot of wide open receivers and that wide open offense under Chip Kelly, and then it was the guy after Kelly. I forgot his damn name. Helfrich. And guys were open every goddamn where. And I'm like, yeah, this shit is not realistic. This is not how it works in the NFL. You won't go read option. You won't go RPO and have your running back streaking down the sideline, or your tight end or your wide receiver running 30 yards down the field with nobody within 5 yards of it. It just doesn't happen. That's why you always got to be wary of some of these Ohio State guys, and that's why a lot of people are wary of Mac Jones, because that shit is not realistic. Your guy isn't going to be 7 yards away from the next closest defender. I'm watching some of these games with Justin Fields, and I'm like, are you effing kidding me? Where's the defense? Like I said, Mariota, I thought there was like a bit of a culture shock when he got to the NFL. And it didn't help that they kept changing offensive coordinators and there wasn't a lot of stability in Tennessee. I'd like to see a more mature Marcus Mariota who's adapted to the league now. And the skill set is still there. He's still an athlete. He's still got an arm. He can still do a lot of the intangibles. He's a really good guy in the locker room. He's a leader. Quiet. I remember one of my criticisms of him at Oregon is that I don't know if he's vocal enough to be a guy that's a leader of men. Look, I don't know if that's changed or not, or if that ever was a real thing or not. That could have been a figment of my imagination. At the end of the day, I like Marcus Mariota's skill set. And I'd like to see him get another shot. And I wouldn't mind if it came here in Washington. So, we'll see what happens. I think Washington is interested. And they should be. GearCell1. Got a super chat from GearCell1. Greatly appreciate you. My man GearCell1 writes, it's been a while. That it has. That it has. He says, just got back from the annual Daisy Duke Corduroy convention. Look at them girls at the Daisy Duke song. I want you to look at them girls at the Daisy Dukes song. Now, it was a corduroy convention. You got to watch out. You might start a fire. What you know about that? You don't know nothing about that. Anyway, Daisy Duke Corduroy Convention. That's a lot. That's a mouthful, too. Hosted by LeVar Arrington. We need a linebacker and a wide receiver in free agency. Yes, we do in terms of wide receiver. I don't know if we'll get one of those linebackers in free agency, however. I think that is a much tougher task than a wide receiver. But I will explain that a little bit later on in the show. Thank you for that super chat. And as always, thank you for the laugh. Irish, thank you for the super chat. Irish, greatly appreciate you. Irish writes, do you see Rivera and company taking a linebacker at 19 overall? Xavier Collins would be a home run if he is there. Look, we've talked about linebacker and 19 and, you know, the different options that may be available to us. I think Xavier Collins will be there, but again, there's no guarantees in this thing. All it takes is for one team to fall in love with Xavier Collins and he's gone. Poof. They're going to be, from what I'm hearing, and again, I haven't watched these backers, so I can't tell you anything about Xavier Collins. Can't tell you about the kid Bolton from Missouri. I can't tell you about Jabril Cox from LSU. Can't tell you about any of these guys. The only one that I've watched any of is Micah Parsons, and that's because he plays for Penn State. And I've watched a ton of Penn State football. So I can't tell you a lot about any of these linebackers and who's going to do this and that and where they should go off the board. I won't be able to tell you that for another couple of weeks. However, 19 is endless possibilities for Washington. It really is. But again, we don't know what is really necessary until free agency hits. Because again, as I've mentioned to you, I'm already taking wide receiver off the board at 19. Why? Because I fully anticipate us getting a wide receiver or two in free agency. So I don't look at wide receiver being even remotely close to being something they're going to consider at 19. However, after that, all bets are off. It could be an offensive tackle. It could be a linebacker. It could be a cornerback. It could be a quarterback. It could be a cornerback. It could be a safety. It could be anything. It could be a tight end, for all I know. They could trade the pick up. They could trade back. Pick up more picks. Don't think that there's any great value here at 19. Somebody's dying to come up and get somebody. So they move back. Anything's possible at 19, including Xavier Collins, linebacker out of Tulsa. At the end of the day, I think that 19, honestly speaking, and you know, it's crazy to say this because when we were in season, there were so many people, why would you want to win the division? It's just going to move our draft pick back. It's stupid. You won the division at 9-7. It doesn't matter. Blah, 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 blah. I think we're in a great spot at 19. I really do. Would you have rather been 6-10 and picking at 11, 10, 11, 12? For some of you, you probably say, yeah, to hell with the division and losing to Tampa in Wild Card Weekend. To those people, I say, I don't have anything for you. I've already explained the importance of why playing in a playoff game and playing in meaningful football down the stretch and getting a taste of playoff football was so important to this football team and this roster. If you don't understand that, then I can't keep explaining it to you. However, I look at 19 and I'm like, this is a great spot to be in. I really feel that way. The possibilities are endless. We can move up. If a guy starts to fall into our wheelhouse, we can move back. If we don't think there's any great value and somebody wants to come up, we can stand pat and say 19's good for us, and there'll be a wealth of talent available at 19. There'll be a bunch of guys available. And I've already said this. There'll be 2 or 3 that you didn't even think would be there. Like, what is this guy doing here? Maybe it's only one guy. Somebody's going to be left. Because in one of those years where you're going to get 3 or 4 quarterbacks, and we know it's going to be 4 this year, that are going to go in the top 12, more likely than not the top 10, more likely than not the top 8 of the draft, then you're going to get another 2 or 3, probably 3 offensive linemen that go ahead of us in these first 18 picks before we select. You're going to get at least 1, if not 2 corners that go. You're going to get 2, if not 3 wide receivers. You're going to get 1, if not 2 defensive ends. Because I think the defensive end out of Michigan, Pay, is going to go. And I think the kid out of Miami, Gregory Rousseau, is going to go in the top 18 picks. I didn't even talk about the linebacker that's going to go in Micah Parsons. I didn't even talk about the tight end that's going to go in Kyle Pitts. You're going to look up and you're like, damn, shit. This guy might fall. This guy might fall. This guy might fall to us. We might have the pick of the litter. Sort of like back in 2017, or excuse me, 2018. It was 28. I always get this mixed up. 2017 was Allen, 18 was Payne, 19 was Haskins and Sweat, and 20. Yeah, so 18. Back in 2018, when we took Payne, and Derwin James, I didn't expect him to be there, and my guy from Virginia Tech, that's in Buffalo right now. I always forget his dang on name. Terrell Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds was there. And Deron Payne was there. And they wanted Payne. And I thought it was a mistake. I still think it's a mistake. Even though I like Deron Payne a lot. I would prefer Tremaine Edmonds at this point. Not so much Derwin James. A lot of you were higher on Derwin James. I was cool with them if we would have taken him. But he's been injury prone. He was injured at Florida State. He's been injured in the league. He's still a hell of a football player if he's healthy. I wanted Tremaine Edmonds. That was the guy that I wanted. Still want him. But that's nor here nor there. We took Payne. But I didn't expect, the moral of the story is, I didn't expect those 3 guys to all be available. And we had a chance to get one of the 3, and we took Payne. We could be in a similar situation at 19. I really feel that way. We're going to look up and you'll be like, whoa. Didn't expect this guy, or that guy to be here. Birdman hand rub. Okay, let's see what we can do. And maybe that'll entice somebody to want to come up, and maybe we want to move back. The possibilities are endless at 19. I'm just excited about where we are. Thank you for that super chat, Irish. Got another super chat. This next one is from Martin Matthews, my man Double M. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, hey Louie, I got my untrustworthy crystal ball, and my crystal thud tells me we trade for Mariota, a 4th rounder, and Alex Smith. So I can tell you right now, your crystal ball is definitely untrustworthy because nobody wants Alex Smith in a trade from us, and nobody wants to inherit that contract. Nobody wants a damaged Alex Smith. The story was great. It's awesome, but nobody's looking to take on Alex Smith's contract as it currently is constituted. So I can't see anyone trading for Alex Smith. And I'll take it a step further. If you're trading Alex Smith, you can trade Alex Smith for Marcus Mariota more likely than not straight up. And if they feel like, hey, look, Alex's contract is a little bit more expensive than that of Mariota, you got to give me something. It's not a 4th. It's more like a 6th or a 7th. It's not a 4th. Because you can trade a 4th for Mariota straight up and not throw any players in. So, I could see Mariota for a 4th. I could see the Raiders saying, hey, look, man, you got 2 threes. You don't need both of those. Let me get one of them. And Washington saying, nah, you ain't going to come for one of my threes just because I got them. And the Raiders could be spiteful and say, well, look, tell you what, if all things are equal, everybody's offering me a 4th, I'm not taking yours because you got 2 threes and I want one of them. So what you going to do? And then it just depends on how bad you want them. And if everybody else is offering, let's say there are 2 other teams willing to offer the Raiders a 4th round pick for Marcus Mariota, but ours is higher than theirs. The Raiders could still be, petty and say, hey, yours is technically the highest 4th rounder, but I want your 3rd. You can say, all right, well, then take one of the other deals then. It's not a big deal. Go ahead and do what you got to do. But we're not giving you one of our 3rd. That's how I would play it. I can see us offering up a 4th for him. And I think the Raiders are trying to kind of string this thing out. They don't have to make any decisions right now. I don't know if Mariota's due a roster bonus or any of that stuff. If that comes into play, if he is due a roster bonus by X said date, then yeah, they would want to move him before that date comes so they don't have to be on the hook for that roster bonus. However, if there is no deadline that forces them to have to make a move, they don't have to do anything with Mariota right now. They can wait and see if the value increases on him before we get to the draft. So we'll see what happens with that situation. 4th rounder is all I would be willing to, is the most I'd be willing to give up, I should say. Thank you for that super chat, Martin Matthews. Got another super chat here from Justin Moody. Thank you for the super chat, Justin Moody. I want to quickly ask all of you who are out there before I read this super chat to make sure that you subscribe to LouieTeeNetwork for more great content. Turn on that notification bell and also hit that like button. 149 likes, which is a good number, but it's 400 and almost 70 of you out there. So that number could be a lot higher. So I ask that if you haven't already hit the like button, please do so. Justin Moody says, we need to get Najee Harris at 19. That's definitely not happening. That's another position that I can all but assure you that we won't be addressing at 19. You spent a 3rd round pick on a running back last year that played really well when he was healthy, and you think the sky is the limit for him. And I just don't see you investing in another running back that high in the draft. Now, I'm not saying that they won't. Remember, I got running back as my very last need on this football team. And if they were to go that direction, I wouldn't have any problems with it later in the draft. I would have a problem with that at 19, especially knowing that you just went and got Gibby last year in the draft. I just don't see them investing in a running back. Even though Najee Harris is a special back, can do a lot of things for your offense, including catch it out of the backfield. I just don't see them investing in that position that high in the draft when there are other glaring needs that can be addressed at 19. Running back isn't a glaring need. It isn't something that you have to go after that early and invest early draft capital in. Not saying that you don't need to invest any draft capital in it. You just don't need to do it at 19. There are so many different positions that will need attention that you'll probably have some quality football players available to you at 19. I just don't see how running back trumps, middle linebacker, or cornerback, or tight end, or offensive line if they so choose to go in that direction, or weak side backer, whatever they decide to do. There are so many different needs on this team. Even if they went defensive end again, I know some of you are thinking you're crazy, but no Kerrigan means you got to find another guy that can help platoon when Sweat and Young get tired. Like, there's no 3rd rusher. If one of those guys were to go down for an extended period of time, we're screwed at one of those end spots. We got nothing now that Kerrigan's no longer there. So even if they said, look, we got to replenish defensive end, and that was the best player available on their board, got no problems with them doing that. Because remember, at some point, you got to understand, one of those guys, Sweat's probably going to walk at some point. I hope I'm wrong about that. Hope they got enough money for everybody, but you don't. You don't. You don't have enough to pay Sweat $100 and then turn around and pay Young $100, and then if we find a quarterback, have to pay that guy and pay Terry and pay Sweat and, or Payne and you know and all of these guys. Allen's going to come first, more likely than not. Sheriff is about to get broken off, more likely than not. Like, you gotta understand how this thing works. So even defensive end would come before another running back, personally. So I don't see Najee Harris being an option at 19, personally. Got another super chat. This one is from Dijon Bell. Thank you for the super chat, Dijon Bell, who writes, King Louie, don't call me that. Should we get Xavier at 19? Again, I got to watch tape. I mean, everybody's talking about this dude. He must be a stud. He must be an absolute beast of a linebacker. And if that were the case, why isn't anybody talking about him as a potential top 15 pick? You know, I just saw a mock draft, and again, I respect DJ. I respect the hell out of him. He didn't even have him in the first round. Not to say that DJ knows everything, but he didn't think highly enough of Xavier Collins to find a way to get him into the first round. So, we'll see. We'll see what the hell happens. I'm going to do my homework because I want to be able to talk to you about some of these guys and how I feel, and, you know, if this guy is worthy of a selection at 19 or not. I can just tell you this right now. Linebacker is definitely a high priority at 19 as we sit here on February 18th. We could be sitting having a totally different conversation on March the 28th after free agency has hit, and we've had 2 weeks to digest everything that has been done, and Washington has acquired 2 linebackers in free agency, one of the weak side variety and one of the middle linebacker variety. And now I'm sitting here saying, I don't know if 19 really is a spot at linebacker. And then don't forget about Reuben Foster. Like, I don't factor him into my decision-making process because, as I've mentioned to you, he hasn't done anything here. So I don't factor him into this decision-making process. But if they re-sign him, and I would assume that if they're going to do that, it'll happen here shortly, and they decide to re-sign him to like a 1-year deal, he has to factor into the decision-making process in the draft as well. So just thought I'd throw that out there. But anyway, thank you for that super chat. All right, so got no more super chats. So now I'm going to get into my free agency portion of the show. I want to start at the linebacker position because that's the biggest need that I have on the defensive side of the football. Wide receiver is my biggest need. The second biggest need is middle linebacker. So to me, there aren't many linebackers available. Like, they're not even worth mentioning if you're talking middle linebacker. Honestly, there are only 2 guys that I think would even merit discussion, and one of them I'm not a huge fan of. Jayon Brown is 26 years old. That's the guy that I told you guys about during the season. He got injured and missed the final, like, maybe 6 or 7 games of the season. Was playing solid ball. Not great, but he's playing solid ball. I think that's a guy that is intriguing in free agency. Don't know how they feel about him. Right now, Sport Rack has him estimated at around $11 million per year if you want to sign him. That's his market value right now. So a 3-year, $33 million deal, or a 1-year, $9.5, $10, $11 million deal to try him out. You know, more likely than not, Jayon Brown isn't a guy that's looking to take a 1-year deal. He's probably like, look, I'm trying to get my money now. If I can get, a 3-year, $36 million deal, I'll take that. I'm not gonna wait for the cap next year because I could hurt myself again, or I could have a lackluster year and then my value come down even more. So guys will usually take a bird in the hand instead of two in the bush. So Jayon Brown is interesting. 26 years old, middle linebacker of Tennessee Titans, coming off of his rookie deal. Jarrett Davis is the other guy. 27 years old, Detroit Lions, former first-round pick out of Florida. I wasn't a massive Jarrett Davis fan when he was drafted. Has been a bit of a disappointment in Detroit, which is why they didn't pick up his 5th-year option despite being a first-round pick. That's why he's available now at 27 years old. And personally, it's not going to cost you nearly as much as it is to get Jayon Brown. I think Jarrett Davis is somewhere in that $5 to $8 million per year range. And so if you were looking to try a guy on for size, he might be more of that guy. I don't know if he's the kind of athlete they're looking for or not at the middle linebacker position, personally. I think John Bostic runs better than Jarrett Davis. I don't know if Bostic has better instincts than Jarrett Davis. I just know he runs better than him. So I'm not really all that interested in Jarrett Davis, to be honest with you. But he's there. That's it at middle linebacker, if you want to be honest. The rest of the guys are 30-somethings, past their prime, or never had a prime, or they aren't worth mentioning. Sorry. It's not a lot out there. You can take a look for yourself. Now, weak side linebacker, different story. Lavonte David, he's 31 years old, coming off of a Super Bowl. I honestly don't want any 30-somethings. I'm good. I know he's interesting. He's an Iron Man. He doesn't miss time. He's probably still got a lot of good football left in him. All of those things may ring true. He's 31, man. He's 31. I'm good. I really am. That's some shit the old Washington Redskins would do. We're the Washington football team now, and we're under new management. Nah, I'm good. That's fire up. Redskins won, and Daniel Snyder and Vinny Serrato going and snatching up every 30-something looking for a big payday they can find. I'm good on Lavonte David. And I'm not saying he's one of those guys that would do that to us. But I'm good. Now, Matt Milano, on the other hand, who's 26, is right up my alley. Now, Lavonte David at 31 years old going to cost you $13 million per year. Try that one on for size. Whereas Matt Milano is 26, he'll cost you $14 million per year at weak side backer. Both David and Milano are both weak side backers. I want Milano bad. And 14 is nothing if we could get him. However, here's the problem. I can't see Buffalo allowing him to get to free agency. If they got to slap the franchise tag on him, I could see them doing that. But I don't think there's any way, shape, or form Buffalo looks at their roster, looks at their defense, and says, we're better off without Matt Milano. I just don't see it happening. So I think if they get J.J. Watt, that could change their financial situation, and maybe a guy like Matt Milano becomes expendable at that point because they don't have the kind of means to franchise tag Matt Milano. I don't know what the franchise tag number is for a weak side linebacker. I don't know what that number is. But I'd imagine that number is very high because guys like Von Miller and Shaq Barrett was on the franchise tag last year, and it was $15 million. Those guys are considered outside linebackers. So that number is probably right around $16 million. I don't know if Buffalo's in a position to do that or not. But Matt Milano is the guy that I would like. And I think Buffalo's going to slap the franchise tag on him. So we'll know here shortly because that franchise tag period is about to open up. And if that window opens and closes and Matt Milano isn't tagged, It's on. It's on. I would love to get my hands on some Matt Milano. He's athletic. He's a tackling machine. He can run down the field with running backs and tight ends. He's exactly what this defense is missing. And if you want to blitz, like we did with KPL at times, he can do that as well. So he's exactly what the doctor ordered at linebacker, at weak side linebacker in particular. I'd be very intrigued by Matt Milano. But those are the only two guys. Jayon Brown and Matt Milano are the only two linebackers that I'm interested in at all. I got a couple of super chats. I want to knock those out real quick. This first one is from my man Martin Matthews, Double M. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. Greatly appreciate you, Martin Matthews. My man Double M writes, "Hey Louie, I think Heineke got lied to. Other than Watson, I don't see a quarterback winning in open competition. The quarterback we get will likely get paid more, and it doesn't make sense to have him back up Heineke. What do you think?" Look, I think you're right if we go out and sign somebody. You know, if we go out and trade for somebody, yeah, I think he got lied to. But it wasn't intentionally. Like like Rivera came out and said one of the biggest mistakes he made in his first year in Washington was not having an active, open competition at quarterback. He pretty much gave the job to Dwayne. He pretty much laid out a set of things that Dwayne needed to do to earn their trust to be the starter, and he did those things. He worked hard in the offseason. He came in shape. He came in early. He stayed late during the offseason. Everything that they asked him to do, he checked all the boxes. So they said, okay, you did everything we asked you to do. Here's the starting quarterback job. We're going to give you an opportunity. Don't blow it, kid. And he did. I think Rivera felt like he did this team a disservice by not opening up the quarterback position and exposing it to a competition. I don't think he wants to make that mistake this time around, but you're right. If they go out and they trade for a Mariota or they trade for Sam Darnold, they're going to give that guy every opportunity to be the guy. And Heineke's going to have to outplay him by leaps and bounds in this offense, which might not be that hard to do because he's so familiar with it and he knows where everybody is. However, they're going to give that other guy that they have invested not only money now, but draft capital as well, every opportunity to come in here and be the starter. I don't think they lied to him necessarily. I wouldn't use that phrase. All right. But I do think it would be hard for Heineke to be given the starting nod over a guy that they brought in, that they're paying more money to, that they invested a draft pick more likely into because of having to trade for him. Because I don't see them signing anybody on the free agent market. You know, I don't see them going out and signing Jameis Winston or signing Ryan Fitzpatrick or any of those guys that will be available this offseason. If they're going to go get someone, I think it's going to be via trade. And if they're trading for someone, they're trading for that guy with the, especially like Mariota and Darnold. Like you're trading for that guy to find out if he's the guy. Like Mariota's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't think they're going to trade for Mariota, rip up his 1 year left on his contract, and give him a new 3-year deal. They're gonna play out that 1 year, and if Mariota performs at a high level, they're gonna want him back. Same thing with Sam Darnold. He's got 2 years left on his rookie contract. If you pick up the 5th-year option, which I would assume would be done if you were to trade for him, you got 2 years to figure out if Sam Darnold's the guy. You don't want to waste one of them giving Taylor Heineke an opportunity. I mean, I know that sounds harsh, and most of us want to see Taylor Heineke get at least a chance, but we got to be real with ourselves. If that's the move that's made, it's because they want to find out about the guy that they traded for, not the guy that's, that was getting ready for finals 3 months ago. So I won't say they lied to him. The intent is to have a competition. especially if things remain the way that they are. If they bring back Alex Smith and Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke, I think there's a competition there to be had. If they bring back Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke and they draft a young guy, I think there is a competition to be had. It's only if they go out and they get Marcus Mariota or they go out and they trade for Sam Darnold. That's when or obviously Deshaun Watson, then there's not even a competition to be had. There's not even a discussion to be had. But if you trade for one of those other two guys, as I just mentioned, or you go sign a Jameis Winston, which I don't see happening, or a Cam Newton, which I don't see happening, or as somebody said, that Field Yates said, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't see happening either. But if you go sign one of those guys, there may be a competition. None of those guys are world beaters. None of those guys are someone that you look to as the future of this franchise at the quarterback position. So I don't think they lied to him. The intent is to have a competition, but obviously things change as you go out and you pursue some of these opportunities. And Ron said, we're going to look to pursue a lot of these opportunities out here. So I don't think they lied to him, but more likely than not, Taylor Heineke is going to end up being a backup. I don't see him getting a chance to start. I hope I'm wrong because I really want to see him get a chance, but we'll see what happens. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor, who writes, "Hey Lou, if we draft middle linebacker, did you mention Xavier Collins like only 25 times tonight? Only like 25 times." Yeah, that's somebody that fans have brought up numerous times tonight and have been bringing up for a very long time. So I think a lot of fans, just like early in the season, Washington fans knew we needed a quarterback, and they got all fixated on Zach Wilson, only to realize, and I told them, I said, look, guys, if you're falling in love with this Zach Wilson kid, and I hadn't watched any of them at that point, I said, if you're falling in love with this kid, and then that prompted me to go watch one of those games early in the season, and he tore it up, and I was like, okay, looks like the real deal. I said, if you're falling in love with him now, what do you think is going to happen between now and the draft? He's not a secret anymore. If you were hoping to keep this guy quiet, it's not happening. They were undefeated. They had a big game versus Coastal Carolina late in the season. The secret's out. Cat's out of the bag. He's a top prospect. And generally with quarterback or talent in football in general, you can't keep secrets. I don't give a shit where you are. They will find you if you can play. So you guys quickly came off of the Zach Wilson train because you realized we're not going to be bad enough to get him. I think a lot of you thought we were going to be bad enough, and then when you realize Louie T was right, we're not going to be bad enough to get a top 5 pick, which is what it's going to take to get Zach Wilson, you stop with all the Zach Wilson talk. But it could be the same thing with Xavier Collins. You guys are all fixated on him. And I don't know if, he'll end up being someone that goes a lot higher than we think. He probably will be available at 19. But we've done this before where we get all excited about a guy and we want him to take him at 19 or we want him to take him at 38, only to realize it doesn't take any of that to get that guy. I remember when we wanted Kelvin Harmon and he was like, oh, we got to take him now. Remember when we wanted Tim Settle? Oh, my God, we got to take him now. We should spend the 2nd round pick. We should spend the 3rd round. We should spend the 4th round. We should spend. Oh, shit, we got him for a 6th round pick. Didn't see that one coming. Oh, no, we should spend a 2nd round pick on Tim Settle. He's there in the 3rd round. We should get him. Oh, shit. We got him for a 5th round pick. Sometimes you just got to be patient. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Look, if he's the guy you identify, you know my mantra, you know my motto, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. But if you feel like there's better value at 19 than Xavier Collins, you take that guy. And if Collins is there at 51, awesome. Awesome. If he's not, and you really like him, and he's sitting there at 40, then go and get him. Go get him. Metaphor, double up, thank you for doubling up, Metaphor. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor writes, tackle Darrell Williams probably Bills tag over Milano. Offensive linemen do come first, so that is interesting. Darrell Williams was a pleasant surprise for Buffalo. I'd be disappointed in them if they can't get a deal done with Darrell Williams. Honestly, I get it that he's playing tackle, right tackle for the Buffalo Bills. They just paid Deion Dawkins a lot of money to be their left tackle. And you want to solidify. You got Josh Allen. He's turning into one of the league's best. You want to protect him. You don't want to play any games with your tackles. So if you can't reach a long-term deal with him, that would be the smart move to put that franchise tag on Darrell Williams instead of Matt Milano. That said, they got to find a way to re-sign Darrell Williams and leave that franchise tag vacant for Milano if need be. But we'll see what happens. That's an interesting dilemma that they find themselves in. We could be the beneficiaries of that. I would love to. I would love to be the beneficiary of that for sure. Thank you for that metaphor. Red Wings 01, thank you for your 4th super chat of the night. Greatly appreciate you. Red Wings 01 writes, do you think there will be a competition for kicker? I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think they're going to spend any draft capital on a kicker. I don't mind them doing that if they did. You know, I only have one rule when it comes to any specialists that you're going to draft, whether it be a punter, long snapper, place kicker, a special teams guy. You know, I usually don't lump them in because that guy can have different roles on the team. He can expand his role. But generally, when it comes to long snapper, punter, or place kicker, 5th round or later, I don't got any problem with it. Do whatever the hell you like. You can do whatever you like. Yeah. Anytime before that, I got a problem. We got a problem. Serious problem. So if they decided to invest in a place kicker, knock yourself out. I don't see them doing that. I could see them signing a undrafted guy. I could see them, they got Kare Vedvik here already. I could see them having a little bit of a competition for sure. But you're going to have to clearly outperform Dustin Hopkins. They like him. I like Dustin. You know how I feel about Dustin. Yeah, he had a rough go of it. But I've told you there have been kickers in the past that have had a rough go of it. The team stuck it out, and that guy rewarded them, like Green Bay this year with their kicker. There was a rough patch about 2 or 3 years ago with Mason Crosby. He couldn't hit the backside of a barn. Aaron Rodgers went in and pleaded with management, don't get rid of this guy. He's going to be clutch for us. I don't know if he missed a kick this year. So I'm saying tough it out. Better days may be ahead. But if a guy comes in, outperforms D-Hop, so be it. But I do think there will be some type of competition. I don't think he'll just be handed the job like he was in past years. I think there'll be a little bit of a competition for it. But I expect Dustin to end up on this roster again when it's all said and done. They love his leg. Got another super chat. This one is from Fat American. Thank you for the super chat, Fat American. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, hey, Lou, did you listen to Jay Gruden interview on the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast? No. I'm exactly 21 episodes behind on the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast. I can tell you the episode that I'm on. I'm on the episode where they're reviewing the divisional round games. So I think it is maybe the Thursday heading into championship weekend because he's got Tommy on the show with him. It's the Sports Fix show that they do on Tuesday and Thursday. So I think it's the Thursday of championship week. So I'm way behind. So no, I haven't listened to Jay. And I like to listen to them in order. I'm weird like that. I don't like to skip around. So everybody's talking about the Jay Gruden interview. I listened to Jay Gruden 3 times on 3 different podcasts before he talked with Kevin on his show. I'm thinking that's the reason Kevin even thought to have Jay Gruden on, is that he listened to him on Ben's podcast. He listened to Jay. I listened to him on like 2 different podcasts. And Jay was pretty forthright. He was very open with what he was saying. And I think Kevin heard that and said, shit, let me get Jay on the pod and get him to open up. I know what I want to ask him. So I'm pretty sure, and Jay's a great interview. We knew that when he was here. Jay was great behind the mic. Fun guy. Gonna keep you laughing. Not gonna sugarcoat anything. I bet he had a lot to say. But it's probably much of what he's already said. So, no, I haven't heard it, though. I can't wait to hear it because a lot of people are talking about it. But, again, I think it's a lot of what has already been said for the most part. Thank you for the super chat. Landry Bulbin, my man L.B, tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. Landry writes, non-free agency related, but Scott Turner needs to do better at play calling in 2021. Yeah, he needs to. Everybody needs to do better. It's not just Scott Turner. I thought Scott Turner had I actually thought he had a great inaugural year. You know, for his first time being the guy in that hot seat of calling plays, I thought he did a phenomenal job. There were some games where I thought, yeah, he might have missed the mark here. Carolina game is the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. Thought we should have run the football. We talked about that after the game. Like, what are we doing here? We're getting like 5, 6 a pop in the first half. Dwayne stinks. What are we doing right now? Run the goddamn ball. They're giving us 6-man boxes. They're playing this college football 3-3-5 alignment. What are we doing? Run it. And he didn't. So, outside of that game, and there may have been one more game in there. You know, the Eagles game I thought was a little sketchy at times with some of the playmaking decisions, but I thought he was fine. You know, I thought he did a good job this year, especially with the limited resources he was given on offense. Thought he did a pretty good job. So, yeah, he needs to be better, though. And why wouldn't he be in year 2? You know, year 1 was an adjustment for everyone. And he had to do it with 4 different quarterbacks. So imagine if he gets one guy and that guy stays healthy and does a really good job of grasping what it is they're trying to get done offensively. And you're going to get year 2 of Antonio Gibson and year 2 of Terry in this offense. You're going to get year 2 of all of the offensive linemen and them working with Matsko on the offensive line. And you're going to get year 2 of Logan Thomas. Everybody should be better, and that includes Scott Turner as well. Thank you for the super chat. Got another one here from Fat American. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Fat American. Greatly appreciate you, my man Fat American. Writes, bruh, it's pretty informative. Makes me wonder how this team would have been if he had a coach-centric approach. What do you think? Has a good eye for talent. I told you that I liked Jay Gruden. My biggest problem with Jay was he was too lax. He's a good dude. I told you, hey, Jay is a dude you want to go out and grab a couple drinks with. Life of the party, fun-loving guy. But when it came to Jay putting his foot down, like your players can't be comfortable enough with you that they think it's okay to give you a purple nurple. Like, that shit is not okay. We're not best friends. I'm your superior. I want you to have a great relationship with your players, but they should never feel like we're comfortable enough and it's okay for them to give me a wet willy. But that's the kind of environment that Jay fostered. That was the thing that I told you. Jay had an eye for talent. Scott McLuhan told us Jay had an eye for talent. We knew that Jay made the Matt Ioannidis pick. We knew that Jay made the Cole Holcomb pick. We knew that Jay had an eye for talent. There was never a question about that. I told you, Jay could scheme up some offense. Jay's biggest downfall was he didn't ever find an adequate defensive coordinator. He let his ego get in the way. He should have hired Wade Phillips. Instead, he brought Wade Phillips in and chastised him. Showed him film of when he had success against Wade instead of saying, Wade, fix my defense. That was Jay's biggest downfall. And then all the shit that was going on around him with Dan and Bruce, he never had a chance. It's a miracle the man made it 6 years. It's a miracle that for the first time in back-to-back years under Jay Gruden, this organization had back-to-back winning seasons. Think about that. Let that sink in. Over a 20-year span, this organization has never had back-to-back winning seasons. We didn't do it under Joe Gibbs 2.0. We didn't do it under Mike Shanahan. We damn sure didn't do it under Jim Zorn. It never happened. It happened with Jay Gruden, of all people. And it should have been 2 playoff seasons in a row. Should have been 9-7 in a division winner, and then it should have been another 9-7 or 10-6 the following year if Dustin Hopkins' ass can hit some field goals. If Matt Jones, Matt Jones, doesn't fumble in Detroit. Should have been 2 straight division winning years. Or no, not 2 straight division winning years, 2 straight playoff seasons. But that's nor here nor there. I wanted Jay in the moment. Remember, I was the guy that said, hey, I'd love to keep Sean McVay. But Jay coming off of a division crown and another winning season, let's see where this goes. And it ended up going downhill. Bunch of injuries. They didn't want Kirk back, whatever. At the end of the day, I liked Jay. I didn't love Jay, but I liked Jay. And Jay was good at what he did, which was scheme up the offense. But I don't think he was ever the disciplinarian that we needed here. And I think him telling us, what he's told us over these last few weeks it's furthering home the point. It's hammering home the point that he was never really in control. And we knew that already. We knew it was Bruce running the show. We knew Dan was meddling. We knew those things already. We knew that he was a puppet. He was the equivalent of Jason Garrett in Washington. We knew that already. He's just confirming what we speculated. Now we're able to put some definitive statements to the things that we thought. That's it. Thank you for that super chat, but I can't wait to hear it. I bet you it's some more good stuff. Anyway, thank you for that super chat. So those are the linebackers. As we get to the cornerback position, it's a little bit more wide open. This is a position that we may ultimately have to really dip our toe into. I'm hoping we get Darby back, and then if we decide to, maybe spend on a nickel. If not, I wouldn't mind just getting Darby back and then trying our hand at the draft at finding a nickel. It's hard to play nickel, man. Not everybody's born to do it either. We've already established that. We tried it with Fab Moreau. We tried it with Jimmy Moreland, and it's been hit or miss with Jimmy. He's had his games where he's been solid, and then there's been games where Jimmy has looked like he's out of sorts and that he belongs outside and that he's a fish out of water inside in the nickel. But free agency at the cornerback position is going to be very, very intriguing, to say the least, because there's like these clear delineations. There these clear lines in the sand. Like, okay, this guy here, this group of players, 30-somethings. I've long said the cornerback position, much like the running back position, no country for old men. All right. There are certain positions where I'm like, man, I like my guys to be a little bit more seasoned. Like defensive linemen, I like to have my beef to be a little bit seasoned. I don't want it tough. I don't want a tough cut a steak. But, the young boys, they tend to take advantage of those guys. You start to get a little seasoning. You learn the tricks of the trade, what you can and can't get away with. When a guy gets to like year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right up in there, you're like, yeah, he's seasoned up now, boy. Perfect cut of steak, well seasoned. Yeah, this shit is delicious. You get that early beef, that fresh cut, year 1 and 2, he's still figuring some shit out. He's playing some grown men now. In college football, he's able to dominate. Now, these some grown-ass men here. It's kind of the same thing with the cornerback position. We talk about baptism by fire. But they get they age a lot quicker. You know, it ain't like fine wine and it gets better with age. When we start talking corners, man, you need those guys to be in their mid-20s, mid to late 20s, if you still want to get production out of them. You start talking about 31 and 32. Whoa. I don't know about this. It's a lot of 30-somethings on this list. All right, so I'm going to run down the list of the guys that piqued my interest at the cornerback position. And I'll tell you the ones that I'm actually interested in. So these are all the names of the guys that are corners that I feel like are available. And I'm not going to mention Dick Sherman, and Josh Norman, and Patrick Peterson, because those guys don't want to come here. And we don't want Josh Norman. But the other two, Dick Sherman and Patrick Peterson, they're not interested in coming here. So why even waste our time and our breaths? Okay? Let's just talk about the other guys. Xavier Rhodes, 31. A.J. Boye, 30. Troy Hill, and I'll mention teams as well because you may not be as familiar with these guys as I am. Xavier Rhodes, 31, Indianapolis Colts this past season, ex-Minnesota Viking. Rhodes closed. He was one of the best corners in the league for a stretch there. Lost his confidence at the end of his Minnesota run, gained it back in Indianapolis, had a stellar year. He's on the market. He signed a one-year prove-it deal. He proved it. Let's see if somebody's going to pay him. A.J. Boye, he's bounced around. He was at his best at the end of his rookie deal in Houston. He goes to Jacksonville. There's a brief spell there when him and Jalen Ramsey might have formed the best 1-2 punch in the league. Whatever happened in Jacksonville, he started to tail off. He shipped off to Denver. It doesn't work in Denver. He's now a free agent. He's 30 years old. Troy Hill, Los Angeles Ram corner. He's 30 years old. He's just developed over time, man. It took a while for him to have the light bulb come on. He first broke into the league as an undrafted corner out of Cincinnati with the Bengals, got to the L.A. Rams, and he's just gotten better every year. And he had a rough go of it in the playoffs, though, against the Packers. But he's 30 years old. Jason Verrett, one of my favorite cornerbacks to come out of the draft in the last 6 or 7 years, out of TCU, was drafted in the first round by the Chargers, had a phenomenal rookie season that looked like it was the start of a potential Hall of Fame career. He was that good. And then injuries just ravaged his career. Was in San Francisco the last 2 years, got injured 2 years ago, played last season, and was phenomenal. Phenomenal. I would have loved to have seen Jason Verrett play behind the defense that they had in 19 with Boza and Defoe and Eric Armstead and all of those guys that they had in 2019 when they were healthy and together. If they would have gotten the Jason Verrett they got this past year, that defense would have been even better, if you can even imagine that. He was outstanding this year. Bashaud Breeland, we all know him. He was with the Chiefs this year, was with them last year, won a Super Bowl with them last year, been to 2 straight Super Bowls. He's 29 years old. Remember, keep this in mind, when Bashaud left here the first time and became a free agent, who tried to sign him? None other than Ron Rivera and Marty Herney in Carolina. So I'm not saying that there's a reunion. I'm not saying that they're still interested. That was 3 years ago. He was 26. Different time. But he's 29. He's a free agent. We'll see what happens. William Jackson, the third. Cincinnati Bengals cornerback. Drafted in the first round out of Houston. He's 29 years old. He's talented, but he's 29. How much good football are you getting left out of this kid? I don't know. Dealt with some injuries. He's intriguing, but he's 29. Keep that in mind. Quentin Dunbar. Been there, done that. Don't want to go down that road again. Ron doesn't like him. He's 29. We'll just move on. Mackenzie Alexander. 28 years old. Not a big fan of Mackenzie Alexander, but he is a nickel. He is a nickel. He's 28. Got some good football left in him potentially. I don't know if he's all there up here or not. Not sure about that. But he's 28, and we need a nickel corner. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Darius Williams, very, very interesting. This guy caught my eye this year in L.A. with the Rams. He's 28 years old. He was balling this season, you know. For whatever reason, they would platoon him and Troy Hill in there. Troy Hill was more of their starting corner, but Williams came out of nowhere for me. I'm intrigued. I'd like to see more. He's 28. It's not going to cost you a ton. We'll come back to that down the road. Mike Hilton, nickel corner, Pittsburgh Steelers, 27 years old. He's a dog. I remember when we played against the Steelers, he was the guy that stood out. He was everywhere. In that first half, Mike Hilton was everywhere. I like Mike Hilton. He's small. He's 5'9", but he's feisty. He's got that dog-eat-dog mentality. Like, okay, yeah, I'm 5'9", so what? You want some? I like him. He's Darby, 27. I didn't realize Ronald Darby was so young. 27 years old. That's it. I want him back. Simple as that. Fabian Moreau, 27 years old. You know what's funny about Fab is that Ron and company talk so glowingly about Fab Moreau. They talked about how they wanted to get him on the field, and he's done everything they asked him to do, and they feel like he deserves to play, and he played more at the end of the season. Guy had a big interception early in the season. I don't know why he didn't play more. He got in one time against the Giants, and he got smoked for a touchdown by Slayton, Darius Slayton. And it was like, okay, we gave you a chance. You effed it up. Back to the bench. I don't think he's coming back. Garyon Conley, former first-round pick of the Raiders, thought it was a mistake then. They figured out it was a mistake. They traded him to the Texans. He's 26 years old. That's where he's been. Could there be a new lease on life for Garyon Conley? Still young. I don't know. Kevin King, 26 years old, second-round pick of the Green Bay Packers, which is why he's available at such a young age at 26. Tons of talent, long corner. He's like 6'3". He can run. He got smoked in the NFC Championship game. Got his ass worked. Gave up the Scotty Miller touchdown. Gave up the touchdown on the first possession of Mike Evans. They had a field day on Kevin King in the NFC Championship game. But he's 26. He's long. I don't know. Vernon Hargreaves, the third, 26 years old. Remember, I told you I was willing to take a flyer on him when he got released by Tampa Bay. He went to Houston. Can somebody rekindle the magic? Can you get the most out of Vernon Hargreaves? Could he play nickel corner? Could he be good at it in the right scheme? Maybe. He's 26. He could be one of those low-cost propositions out there. Ahkello Witherspoon was a guy I had a mega crush on like 4 years ago in the draft. Out of Colorado. Big, long corner, could run. The knock on him is he didn't want to tackle. But he could run. He could stay in phase. He had ball skills. I was sure he was destined for success in this league. And he got drafted by the right team, the 49ers. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. He lost his confidence about 2 years ago, got benched in 2019. When they were making their run, they sat his ass down because he was giving up shit. They played a guy that was undrafted out there. So I don't know where his confidence level is right now, but he's big. He's 6'3". He's 200 pounds. He's a 4'4" guy. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Shaquille Griffin. We know about the story, him and his brother, both in Seattle. Shaquille Griffin can run. We knew that coming out of UCF. He's 26 years old. There were times where I looked at Shaquille Griffin and said, he's got a chance to be a dynamic one corner in this league. And then there are times where I'm like, he's no better than a run-of-the-mill standard 2. You're hit or miss with Shaquille Griffin. He's 26. Again, another guy with some length and can run. And he's 26. Cameron Sutton, also 26, Pittsburgh Steelers, cornerback. Not as tall, right around 5'10", 5'11", but he's feisty. He tackles. He can run. There's a lot to Cameron Sutton. He's 26. Did I mention he's 26? And then the guy that I am fascinated with, but I don't think I'm going to get a sniff at all, or anybody for that matter, is J.C. Jackson, cornerback of the New England Patriots. He's also 26. This guy had 9 interceptions this year. That was preceded with a season where he had 5 interceptions, and that was preceded by a season where he had 3 interceptions. So in 3 years, he's got 17 INTs, which means he can find the football. He's got ball skills. Now, he's going to give some shit up. He's going to get beat a couple of times, but for every time he gets beat, there's an interception coming. He's 26. I'm going to go back through this list and give you the guys that I am intrigued by. Jason Verrett, he's 30, but it's not the 30 you think of. There's not a lot of mileage on those tires. Now, there's a lot of wear and tear from injury on those tires. But those tires are essentially brand new tires. They're refurbished, but they're new. If that makes any sense. Refurbished can't be new technically, but this feels like a phone that you went to Sprint or now T-Mobile and you got, and it's refurbished, but it looks brand new and it works really well. That's kind of Jason Verrett at 30 years old. His legs are probably the legs of a 26, 27-year-old. The injury history says, hey, those are 33-year-old legs, bruh. But if he can stay healthy, they're like, but we got 26-year-old energy, though. What you saying? I just love Jason Verrett. He's a dog. Darius Williams is 28. I told you, I'm just intrigued by Darius Williams. I think there's a lot more to Darius Williams than meets the eye. I wouldn't mind finding out, and it's not gonna cost you a lot, like it will some of these guys on this list. It's not gonna cost you a lot to find out if Darius Williams can be your number 2 corner. Mike Hilton is 27, and I told you he's an animal. He's a guy with a little man complex. I love it. Because he's pissed off because he's 5'9". Somebody's got to pay for the shit. He's 27. I like him. And we don't have a definitive nickel. So I wouldn't be opposed to Mike Hilton. Darby is 27. I want him back. I really want Ronald Darby back. I want Ronald Darby back. The man made a serious impact. I would like to see him come back intact. I want Ronald Darby back. He's 27. Didn't realize he was that young. Cameron Sutton, 26 years old. Pittsburgh Steelers. Wouldn't mind him. Wouldn't mind him at all. Physical. Can run. Does a lot. He's a smart football player. Does a lot of the little things right. Not as long as I would prefer at the cornerback position, but I like Cameron Sutton. And he's only 26. Only 26. And then J.C. Jackson is the guy I want the most. After Ronald Darby. I like to deal with the evil I know than the evil I don't know. I know what I'm getting out of Ronald Darby. I'd just rather stick with that. J.C. Jackson probably has a higher upside than Ronald Darby, but the Patriots have him as a restricted free agent. All the rest of these guys, for the most part, are unrestricted free agents. J.C. Jackson is a restricted free agent. Means that the Patriots have the right of first refusal, and they can slap a tender on his ass. If I'm the Patriots, what's stopping me from slapping a first-round tender on J.C. Jackson? I dare you. Matter of fact, I double dog dare you. Go ahead and sign him to an offer sheet. If we don't want to pay him, you got to give me a first-round pick. And nobody's signing him to an offer sheet and giving up a first-round pick for J.C. Jackson. They could probably get away with slapping him with a second round tender. Then they wouldn't have to pay him as much as the first round tender. And if they lose him, somebody's got to give him a second round pick. If I'm the Patriots, I wouldn't leave it a chance because I'd give him a second round pick for J.C. Jackson. I'd slap a first round tender on his ass and dare somebody to come near my stuff. It's not going to cost you that much money to slap a first round tender on J.C. Jackson. Probably like $5-6 million at best. You get him back for a year. And if he balls again, then if you need to, you can slap a franchise tag on him or you can pay him if you're New England. I don't think we're going to get a sniff at J.C. Jackson personally, but we'll see. Just like when rumors were we wanted the running back out of Arizona, Kenyon Drake. And what did they do? They slapped a tender on his ass. They put matter of fact, they put a transition tag on his ass and pretty much kept everybody at bay. I think that J.C. Jackson is going to get a tender, and that's going to keep everybody at bay. So I'm intrigued by this list of corners. I gave you the ones that I would like to see Washington pursue if it comes to that. I would just prefer them get Ronald Darby, honestly. But we will see. Got a couple more super chats. If you haven't already done so, I want to urge you again, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit the like button. We've gotten over 200, which is great. I really appreciate you. But still, over 400 of you out there, only 207 likes. Please hit the like button if you haven't already done so. Let's see. Got a super chat. This one is from Fat American. Thank you for tripling up, Fat American. Greatly appreciate you. My man, Fat American, writes, you think it's possible for Jay to come back in the media for Washington? LOL. Would be funny since Ron is our head coach now. Not going to lie, I miss Jay. Look, Jay has made it publicly clear that he would like a job in the media. He would like an analyst job. He would like one of those comfy jobs at somebody's studio. And I'm pretty sure if he was offered a job locally to work for one of these networks, he may consider it. Remember, Jay's still being paid by Washington, so he doesn't have to do anything. You know, he wants to get back into coaching, but as he mentioned, I remember listening to him on Ben Standing's podcast. He said pretty much everybody's got their staff already. So, you know, I'm pretty much out of coaching for this year. You know, I'd love to get back into coaching. But, you know, he said he wants to stay around football. So if he can't get a coaching job, he'd love to be an analyst somewhere. I don't know if they would pay him enough money locally, personally. You know, you get to one of these comfy studio jobs with Fox or NBC or CBS, you're making bank. You're making some good bread. You get one of these local jobs, I mean, it ain't peanuts, but it ain't, you know, enough for me to get up off my couch. You know, Jay likes to shoot golf. Jay's like, I'd much rather be in Florida playing golf. I don't need to get off my couch for that. A couple $1,000. Stay home for that. How bad does he want to be involved in football? That's, I guess, what it comes down to. King of the North, thank you for doubling up. Double up. Greatly appreciate you, King of the North, who writes, Jay said Pierre refused to run the fade route at the end of the first half against the Eagles game when Kirk had to take a boneheaded knee. That's why Kirk needed. I can't imagine that with Rivera. I mean, that's interesting. Kirk didn't have to take a knee. He could have spiked it. Remember, we could have kicked a field goal. He didn't need to knee. He could have just spiked it into the ground, but or thrown it out of the back of the end zone. why Pierre would refuse to run a fade is beyond me. Because if I'm not mistaken, Pierre caught a fade for a touchdown in that same game to put it away. Why wouldn't he run the fade? I'd have to listen to it. Maybe it would make sense if I listened to the interview. Thank you for that, King of the North. Metaphor, thank you for your third super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Metaphor writes, Jay didn't know how to play second half crumbled leads. Yeah, he was pretty much the polar opposite of what we did this year. Not necessarily we come out and start fast, but we weren't getting our asses handed to us in the first half every week. And we wouldn't make any adjustments at halftime. Or at least we would. You know, that's one of the cliche things to say if you're a fan and your team doesn't play well in the second. We didn't make any halftime adjustments. You don't know if we did or not. Whether we won or not, guys, things might have just lined up for you in the second half. It might not necessarily be any adjustments that were made. A lot of times when you talk to players, there weren't any necessary adjustments. I mean, it was more so guys just doing what they were supposed to do or whatever, you know, and the ball bouncing your way. But, you know, that's what we like to cling to, second half adjustments, whatever. I just know this team was a second half team this year. We were never that under Jay Gruden for whatever reason. We would start seasons off slow. Jay could never win the first week, and then I think he won it, you know, maybe once or twice down the stretch of his tenure in Washington. But Jay never really won early in the season. We'd get off the sluggish starts, and Jay wasn't great at coming out of the halftime break. So, for whatever that's worth, you know, there were a lot of criticisms of Jay when he was here, and rightfully so. I think he deserved most of those criticisms. Got another super chat. This one is from King of the North. Thank you for tripling up, King of the North. Greatly appreciate you. King of the North writes, in my opinion, Ron has a great eye for picking corners to fit his scheme. I'm not worried about that position at all with him calling the shots. You may be right. Remember, he was the guy that, you know, and again, not like Ron was picking the players in Carolina, but I'm pretty sure he had say-so in what, you know, Marty Herney and Dave Gettleman and those guys were doing. To what extent Ron's voice was being heard, that remains to be seen. Here, we know he's got all of the say. You know, he's got the coach-centric approach thing going, and he can veto a move, or he can, you know, okay it, or, you know, he sounds like he's open-minded to whatever, you know, his guys are telling him. Whatever the case may be, they found James Bradbury. They found Josh Norman. All those guys fit in Carolina in that cover 3 heavy scheme. They did go out and get Jackson, the corner from LSU. He's more of a guy that can play man-to-man because he can run. And all of those guys have been in some way, shape, or form successful in their NFL careers to this point. So you may be onto something there as far as Ron being able to identify secondary talent. Hell, even Captain Munnerlyn in Carolina was really good for them in the nickel. So he's had some success with the cornerback position. Let's hope that that continues here in Washington. And I think he had a large part in the signing of Ronald Darby, and look at what that turned out to be for Washington. So you may be right about that. Thank you for the super chat, Merle Garrett. Greatly appreciate you. Merle Garrett writes, thoughts on wide receiver Mike Williams? I like Mike Williams. Great 50-50 ball go-getter. A guy that can make a lot of plays for you down the field. Can do a lot of the dirty work. He'll block in the run game. There's not much not to like about Mike Williams, but he's not a free agent. So, don't think that's somebody we need to be discussing at this point, but he's really talented. That's for damn sure. And I don't think they want to lose him in Los Angeles when he does become a free agent. I think he's a free agent next year, I believe. Terry Maples, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Terry Maples writes, Dylan Moses in the 2nd, KJ Britt in the 6th at linebacker. I'm always a little weary of those Alabama linebackers. But, I'll watch him on tape, see if there's some things there to like. I can tell you this. We got talent in front of him. It wouldn't be much different than what he was dealing with at Alabama. They don't even have remotely close to the amount of talent we have up front that'll be in front of him, keeping him clean if he can run and make some plays. So, that's always been the knock on Alabama linebackers, which is why a lot of them haven't necessarily panned out at the level that many thought they would at the next level, is because they play behind such tremendous talent at Alabama. They get to the NFL and the talent isn't as great. They're not as clean. And then, bodies get to them at the second level and they're not able to make as many plays. Well, Dylan Moses could be in a position where the talent here in Washington is greater than that at Alabama, which is rare when you come to the NFL in terms of the level of talent on one defensive line. Normally, Alabama's defensive line is one of the best in college football, and so you get to run around, unmolested and make tackles. You don't even have to think. You get to shoot your gun and be aggressive and play on the other side of the line of scrimmage because your defensive linemen are all studs and all going to end up playing on Sundays. I don't know if that's what Alabama's putting on the field right now, but I got to watch film on Dylan Moses and KJ Britt. Got another one here from Fat American. 4th super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Fat American writes, Pierre hated running those fades. They never worked. That's why. They never worked. But again, if my memory serves me correct, and when it comes to Washington football, it doesn't really fail me very often. Pierre ran a fade in that game and caught a touchdown pass to put the Eagles away for good. So why he wouldn't want to run again? That might have been the first fade that worked in the last 30 fade attempts to him in Deshaun that season. Like, I remember there was the running joke, going on at that time that we couldn't throw the fade. That was like one of the worst things we could do. We used to always laugh about Josh Doxson and his inability. And that all started back when Pierre was here. We couldn't throw the fade route to save our life. So, I don't know. That's crazy. I got to listen to it. But that's crazy if he didn't want to run the fade. I mean, what kind of shit is that if you're a receiver? You don't want to run a specific route. Especially if it could get you a touchdown. Never heard of such blasphemy before. That's insane, but I don't put it past those Redskins. I forgot, somebody was telling a story about, it might have been Pierre again. They won a game and somebody was snapping in the locker room. It might have been Pierre's ass that was snapping in the locker room. Anyway, I digress. Got no more super chats. So that's going to do it. Again, 3-hour show. I never realized how long we're live until I look up and realize, shit, we've been going for 3 hours. Fat American with another super chat. 5th of the night. Can't see him. Really appreciate you, Fat American, who writes, listen to the interview, then do a podcast on it. It may warrant, that kind of attention. I'll listen to it, but it's going to be a while. I ain't going to lie to you. I told you I'm like 21 or 22 episodes behind. And normally I only listen to the podcast when I go to the gym or I'm in the car and I'm taking a long ride somewhere. So it's going to take a while for me to catch up. But eventually I will catch up. Eventually I will catch up. I'll get to it and I'll be like, oh yeah, remember when you told me about that podcast? I listened to it. It'll be like 2 months from now. And you'll be like, oh, ain't nobody worry about that shit now. But I told you I'm weird like that. So anyway, I appreciate you guys for chopping it up with me for 3 hours. Next week, we're going to have a lot to talk about. I think some things are going to continue to transpire. Some more dominoes may fall. And we'll be talking a little bit more draft come next week, as we'll have the start of the Draft Prospects 101 series. So with that said, I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. I thank you guys for joining me again on tonight's show. There will be a podcast tomorrow. And then the next time you see me, will more than likely be probably another podcast the following week. If not, you'll see me for Draft Prospects 101 live, 8:30 p. next Wednesday night. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Really appreciate you guys chopping it up with me again tonight. As always, I greatly appreciate you guys. Until then, you guys take care. Have a good one.